Connecting. Right. Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning if you're over in the Western Hemisphere. Who have we got online at the moment? I'm Jason Fox. I'm the senior technical evangelist at the FIWARE Foundation, and I'm going to be running a lot of these sessions over the course of the week. I'm just trying to find out where the chat's disappeared to. Where's the chat disappeared to? Search for an attendee. Where are we? Chat. Messages. Direct messages. Alerts. How do I send a direct message to everybody? I'm trying to work that out. Messages. People. This view. How do I send a message in the chat? Lost it. So yeah, originally this is going to be scheduled as a face-to-face event. I really do need to get the chat working though. How do I get the chat going? So where's chat? No, search for attendee. Messages. Where's it gone? Lost it. What's up? Okay. That's fine. Apparently, we're starting half an hour too early. That would probably explain a few things. Well, where are we? So I'm going to have to. I'm slightly confused here. Am I supposed to be starting at 3 o'clock, or am I supposed to be starting at 3:30? This is going to be interesting. So who have we got online anyway? Right. So I'm just going to wait for a while whilst I'm getting some getting some advice. So let's have it. Speaker chat.
Let me check 1 second, Jason.
I'm happy to start presenting now if necessary, or equally happy to wait for half an hour if that's going to work out better.
No, and we can record the session, so no issue. But let me just check what are we saying in the Eventbrite, because what I don't know is to confuse the audience or people that maybe will join in 35 minutes. So let me check.
Aha, Mannix has got it. Okay. So apparently the Eventbrite, the official schedule, have got different times. So that's not going to be useful. I'll start from the top again in a second. You can just edit out the first 10 minutes of just going okay. So
I think that it is 3:30, so we have time even to do some joke or something. I don't know.
What I will do is I will start doing the presentation now, and I will repeat the first session somewhere in the middle as necessary, so that we can get moving. Anyway. Fine, now that that's cleared up, right, start from the top again. My name's Jason Fox. I've just put my LinkedIn details into the chat, which I've finally found. And the original aim for this week of training was to be able to interact with other people. It was to be able to explain how FIWARE works, how iShare works, how they combine together in i4Trust, but also give you the opportunity to network as well. So I know we've got many different experiments which are coming for very different consortia. It would probably be worthwhile for you to consider this also as a networking event. And if you can put in the chat yourself, I'm from Bulgaria, I'm working in agri, then you'll probably find that there are other people who are also working in the same area, and it's going to be worthwhile you connecting and talking to these people later, because we're talking about the distribution of data here. We're talking about data sharing, and the point is that your area of data and their area of data, particularly if they overlap, is going to be of great interest to be able to share, combine, and then augment the information to move it from one place to another. Now, the underlying principles are as follows. You'll do the iShare stuff for the security. I'm not dealing with the security at all in this session, so I'm assuming it works, clarifying it. And then you've got the actual data. The actual data in a FIWARE context broker is retrieved using the NGSI LD interface, but the underlying data format is JSON LD. Now, I don't work for I don't work for the. Start putting your LinkedIn context details in as well. I mean, I see that Bernard has put some details in. Tell us a bit about yourself. If people are interested in contacting and linking with each other, that's great news. Okay, so thank you very much, Bernard. Equally, if anyone wants to click on my link and send me a link whilst we're at it, I will accept your invitation. I know that was it Mauro has already requested a link. Certainly, absolutely no problem. I'm here to answer questions, and I won't be answering questions over the next week. I'll be answering questions over the next 6 to 12 months. So tell us what area you're working in. Put your LinkedIn comment so that we can all link in together. We should be sharing a beer with each other at the moment. We should be in Gran Canaria. If you want to know about more about Gran Canaria, contact Manix Manglani. I'm sure he'll be able to give you a lot of information about smart tourism and Gran Canaria. But anyway, let's move on. Okay, so what we're talking about, I'm not talking about the security stuff. I'm talking about the data format. And the data format, thank you, Victor. The data format is JSON LD. There is a reasonable amount of confusion, which I've hopefully clarified, about what the difference is between JSON LD and NGSI LD. You'll find a link just on the screen right now. And the basis is that JSON LD is a data representation. NGSI LD is a data representation. Normalized NGSI LD is a data representation, but it's also an API, and there are multiple formats you can deal with it. So, because I'm working for the FIWARE Foundation, I'm saying, okay, I assume you know JSON LD. That's not the case for this session. This session will cover the basics of JSON LD. It will cover the so that we can move on to NGSI LD. So this is the presumed background of everybody here. I'm assuming not everybody's got everything, but if you're having difficulty, please put something up in the chat. I'm trying to monitor that at the same time. It's assumed that you understand what REST is. It assumes you understand what JSON is, not necessarily JSON LD, but the format of JSON, JavaScript object notation. I'm not dealing with that. Similarly, when we start moving on to getting the various FIWARE components up and running, we'll be using Docker. I'm not giving you a basic introduction to Docker. That will be for you to look at privately. The session later on this afternoon is dealing primarily with data modeling, but you'll have at least the basics of data modeling behind you, and of course, obviously, things like basic security standards and what have you. All of these things will be touched on. There will be links coming through at the various stages of the next week. However, we want to cover everything else equally. When you move out of the data sharing area and into where you're making money, where your product is making money. Maybe you've got a wonderful artificial intelligence algorithm, or what have you. There will be some areas it's assumed that you know how to connect your IoT device into a system. You've got some idea behind LoRaWAN, or some idea behind Sigfox, or whatever you're doing there. And again, that's not covered here for the data exchange part. It's covered here for the rest of the series. So this is the basic alignment for who's supposed to be here today, and hopefully you'll learn something. Very briefly, we'll go into FIWARE in much more detail over the next 15 to 20 hours. However, if I was to give an elevator pitch of what is FIWARE in a nutshell, I'd just say it's these 5 points. It's REST done right. In other words, someone has actually looked at Roy Fielding's thesis and has mapped the various points for REST. So you've got your HTTP verbs being used in an appropriate manner. You've got things like HATOAS being able to navigate from the URL to get more information about the data. It means that what you've got is a well-defined API. It's an API which doesn't surprise developers. And the more that you can follow standards out there, so much the better. As I said, although NGSI is actually agnostic as to what the transport is, the way that the specification is written, it is currently context brokers currently use HTTP. You just use your standard HTTP verbs and status codes. So if I say 404, you know it's not found. Perhaps more interest for i4Trust is going to be the 500 series or the 300 series, because obviously if I don't trust you and I want to send an error message of you've not got the appropriate access rights, then you may end up with some other error codes coming through saying, sorry, you were not going to get the information, or we're not going to do stuff for you. However, the common ones are fairly obvious: 404 not found, 200 success. That's going to be most of the stuff that comes through. The idea behind NGSI is to minimize the amount of unnecessary stuff coming through from your requests. So you can work out from the status code, hey, an error has occurred. You can work out from the body of the error more details, but you've got sufficient information from the status code to be able to work out, yes, it succeeded, no, it hasn't, or why it hasn't. And then on top of this, right, as I said, JSON. If you go back to NGSI v2, NGSI v2 is purely a JSON-based format. So we have JSON payloads. They have structure. They, for the so-called normalized payload, and we'll see this later, you have a lot of rules as to what goes where and how it comes out. Now, specifically for the NGSI API, it is possible to return the data in multiple formats. So you might want to return your data as a GeoJSON layer. You might want to return your data as various key values, so a simple JSON response. This is on top of the fact that it's all going to be some form of JSON, whether it's GeoJSON, whether it's GeoJSON LD, whether it's JSON LD, etc., etc. But it's always a JSON payload. Now, the NGSI context broker will give you the state of the now, how the system currently is. But there are two additional functions. You've got registrations to augment your context, which means you can receive information from elsewhere. Going back to the idea of data sharing, I might want to get information from a third party via a registration, and it is then requested and then added to my existing payload as if it's something I know about. And on top of that, we have a standardized publish subscribe mechanism for asynchronous processing. So again, when we look at the details of how I might want to get more data into my system, I would be using the subscribe interface to say, go off and do something. I want to get stuff. I want to get hold of more information. So very briefly, that is what FIWARE is. And now we're going to explain why you need NGSI LD as opposed to NGSI v2. This is the existing FIWARE catalog. FIWARE catalog is a series of free open source components which follow various rules on development. Details you can find on the FIWARE website. But all of these are using solving some sort of general problem. You might want to put some data onto a dashboard. Well, you can use Wirecloud. You might want to get data from a device into a context broker. Well, you can use an IoT agent. These are not a commercial solution in themselves. However, you can add them into your own commercial solution to be able to get information through a context broker. At the center, the block in the dark blue in the middle of any FIWARE-driven smart solution is a context broker, because we're talking about a piece of software which is holding the status of the system as it is right now. It's actually right-time data rather than real-time data, because it's not literally down to the millisecond what the status is, but at least it gives you an indication as to how the system is currently functioning. Because there is this standardized way of holding the data, you can then and pushing it through the various different layers, you can then connect multiple different components. All of these are talking using NGSI, either NGSI v2 or NGSI LD, and you can then get the information out of the context area and then push it into, I don't know, the AI domain or whatever your area is. So you can get the data in a format which you can understand. So you probably won't need all of these components. I mean, some of them are more applicable than others. For example, OLIOT is to do with changes of state in agricultural systems. So, not particularly useful in smart cities, but very useful in pig farming. So you can work out what, whenever a change of state of the element occurs, it will push stuff into the GS1 format. But you should look into these components, and indeed, if you look at the various videos in the FIWARE channel, you'll find information about most of these, some sort of demonstration. One of interest, obviously, is the one in red, which is the security area, and that will be covered in the iShare area, because there's obviously connections to iShare there. Also, the one above it, the BIS framework, is useful for connecting to iShare as well. So you can see that there are connections between the free open source components within FIWARE and how to get into the iShare world. So when we start talking about security, you're not starting from scratch. Okay, so NGSI v2, which is a JSON-based system, already exists. So why are we going to bother with NGSI LD? Well, NGSI has been around for about 10, 12 years. I mean, the original concept of NGSI itself, it was a telecommunications standard. This is the implementation in context brokers. And the idea behind it is to avoid vendor lock-in. Okay, I'll keep getting various messages in the background as to when we're starting and restarting, but we'll restart from the top again a little bit later. There's no vendor lock-in, because if there is a standard for pushing your data through the system, I can connect to somebody else's component. That's the idea. And it also means that there's now interoperability. So if, say, for example, I have an IoT device, needs to talk to an interoperability layer, an IoT agent. We'll deal with that later on this week, which will then transform to this NGSI format. And then thereafter, all the data is in NGSI. So it doesn't matter whether you're using a LoRa component or a Sigfox component, or something working over HTTP, or just loading up files directly from some interface. It all comes in as NGSI data within the system and can be used thereafter. And it obviously powers architectures. So that is how NGSI works. But we're now moving on to the LD bit, linked data. Problem is as follows. Problem is that I don't own the entirety of the data in the world. I have data in the format which works for me. I produce data into my data models, and I want to share it with someone else. They might have to agree with me as to what the data is doing about. So I need to be able to communicate with other organizations. Other organizations may have different priorities. They may be calling the same thing by a different name. They may be having attributes in their data which is close but not quite the same as what I've got. Particularly useful if you're talking about big data, for example. You know, near misses are usable data, right? If I have my own way of communicating and you have your own way of communicating, then it's the case that I will need to come up with some sort of ruling as to how can we come up with a common function on how can we communicate together. Two examples I'm going to talk about before I come into the actual format itself, right? Fairly obvious one on the right. Borders are everywhere, right? Cross-border tourism. If I'm in the south of France and next door is Italy, what they have for their smart tourism data models could be a little bit different. They could be in Italian for that matter, right? However, if I'm in, say, the town of Menton, which is literally on the border, I want to be able to know about information on the far side of that border in a stance in the same format. Now, borders aren't necessarily just international borders. If you take the case, and the other one I believe is a Dutch car park. If you take the case of a city, there might be a car park just outside the municipal boundaries. It might be in the neighbouring authority. Now, they could well have a system which is created by a completely different vendor, and you need to be able to talk in a standardised format as to whether this car park is full, whether this car park is empty. That is context data. That is what we're talking about. But we need to be able to take the format from A to B. We need to be able to come up with some way of doing it. Now, this is not an insurmountable problem. There have been ways of dealing with this in the past. And the basic idea here for JSON LD, and you can see the example at the bottom, which again was in that Stack Overflow thing I linked to earlier. All you need to do is you need to add in an additional attribute to your JSON called this @context. We're going to talk an awful lot about @context over the next week. Now, apart from this, I will. Okay, I keep getting pinged that I might need to do a little bit of this section again, starting in half an hour or so, but we'll sort that out in a bit. As you can see, if you look on the screen, you've got a lump of JSON. That's all it is. It's a lump of JSON with 2 extra attributes in blue. Now, ID is just the name, but it's got this @ID because entities should have a unique ID. There are various keywords in JSON. The other bit there is this thing called @context. And @context is actually a mapping file. It is a mechanism for being able to take your names and placing them into somebody else's names. And I have a practical example here. Where are we? That one there. You will find wrong one. There's a very useful website called the JSON LD Playground, and you will find. I will just briefly. Can I share a different tab? Well, I'll briefly stop sharing and share a different tab. Right, there we go. Is that the right one? No, that's the wrong one. Okay. I'll just go. Actually, I can do it this way. That's the wrong tab, sorry. There we go. Okay, so you can see here I have a building. How do I know it's a building? Well, I've given it the type building, and I've given it some URN identifier. And this is actually following the Smart Data Model's building format. But how can you tell that? Well, you can tell that because if I go to the bottom, I've got this @context. And the @context is saying, right, if you want to find out about my data, about my model, then look at the following URLs. And one of them is defining my models, and the other one is defining NGSI. So what this means is that whatever I've got in here, like category, let's say, or address, can be, I'm going to open this down a bit, scroll up, can be expanded into an IRI. So you take that thing like address at the top. I'm saying this isn't just address. I call it address, but it isn't just address. It's actually a schema.org/address. And indeed, within that lump of JSON here, the address attribute, you can see it's got a structure of type, value, and verify. Well, the value is actually defined by NGSI, and the address locality, again, is defined by schema.org. And you can read in this data, this is the data at the top is this so-called normalized format for NGSI, so it's got all this data. But you can see that every single attribute in my system is actually a long IRI. Now, in many cases, these IRIs are URLs, and you can say pick, say schema.org address, put that into your browser. I believe this one works. You can find out more information about that, what one of those actually is for humans. So you can actually read it. It's a URL. However, the JSON LD specification says that these are IRIs, not necessarily URLs. IRIs do not necessarily resolve to addresses on the web. However, they are unique identifiers. A good example of one which doesn't resolve, I think I've got it here. Is this ID here? Is this ID on screen here? That's going nowhere, but it's uniquely identifying this building. And your building would have a unique ID. And for NGSI, it would start off with it's a URN, right? URNs are usually followed by the protocol. In this case, it's NGSI LD, and then it's the type, and then followed by the unique ID. So you can work out that that's actually what one of these are. So we've now got these ludicrously long names for all our attributes, which is obviously of no use to anybody apart from machines. Now, if I go back to the tab I wanted to beforehand, which is going to go like this. Let's see if I can get the right tab in this time. Share screen, tab. This one, share. Right, so it's the same data. And you can see on screen that I've got the data as to where things are and what they were, just as the same beforehand. However, I can map. Instead of using the supplied @context file, I can map it against my own @context file, which you can see on the right here. And as you can see, a building is a FIWARE building, can be given the same name, in this case, Japanese, because my Japanese developer wants to use kanji for all his attributes. And all of these are agreed things. So we know that schema or a FIWARE building is a FIWARE building, right? Or we know that an address is an address. However, as far as the end user is concerned, he wants to use these Japanese characters. So he can do a different mapping for these attributes, but they're agreeing on those long names. Now, if I look back at the expanded data, the expanded data has got all this information. It's all far too long and completely unreadable, and no one can actually understand it. However, with JSON LD, you can do a compaction operation, which means instead of having all that information, and this actually could even be even shorter because it's got the @context expanded here. That's my full @context saying what all these URNs are. And then the rest of it is actually the data I'm talking about. So in this case, we've got all these Japanese names. Well, get rid of countries for the time being. If you are calling an attribute temperature and I'm calling it temp, we could have the same, we could have this mapping so that your local system could extract my data. And that's the fundamental details of JSON LD, in that it's trying to avoid getting in the way of retrieving your you having to change all your information the same as mine. However, and this is another vital point, what we've got here, and my colleague Alberto will talk about this later, is that we have a common understanding about what a building is. We might call it under different names. You're calling it in Japanese, I'm calling it in Spanish, she's calling it in German, he's calling it in Armenian, whatever. However, we have a common understanding about what these long names are. We're never going to use them because we're not computers, but we are at least going to agree with them on the @context file. Now, if you have a look, here, I have published on the web a definition of my universe. This is a building. This is, in fact, it's the smart supermarket FIWARE example. We're getting hold of various pieces of information. We have also got, of course, I think it's the bottom here. Where are we? Another participant who's publishing their own version of the world, and this is, you know, the one in English. Now, you can see that when you're talking about data sharing, it's not just the data, and the structure of the data, but the meaning behind the data, which needs to be published. And the JSON LD specification will give you a structure to put this information out. Indeed, we'll go into more detail on how to navigate the @graph, for example, which is saying, you know, what's the relationship between that entity and this entity. It is possible to come up with information saying, okay, my attribute is an integer, or my attribute is a string. Now, that's not going to be useful for this so-called normalized data, because the normalized data has got properties and types and values. However, you can also get key values out, and of course, it's really useful to know, you know, my key values is for temperature is going to be a number. So you can see that this is structure which is going to be useful to get hold of the information. Let's get back to the presentation. Which is this one. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing. Right, present to audience. Share screen. So that is JSON LD. Problem we have, as this is describing, is that if you just rely on the short names, like this guy's name is Harpreet Singh, and it's insufficient to define things properly, because that's Harpreet Singh, but that's also Harpreet Singh. This is former colleague of mine, Harpreet Singh, and that was some other Harpreet Singh who's just working in the same area. It's not sufficient. When I say name, do I mean a login name? Do I mean a nickname? I mean, what do I actually mean? I don't mean just Harpreet Singh. I actually mean that URL, that IRI. That's how you would connect to know specifically what that detail is. But that's far too difficult to actually have as a programmer. This is why you hive it off into this at context. Okay, let's move on to NGSI LD. NGSI LD is an evolution of NGSI v2. NGSI v2 is basically the JSON version, and NGSI LD is the LD version. They both have reasons to exist. However, for data sharing, you'd want to use LD. The whole point is for LD, you publish these are what my values are, and you use that additional at context in your requests and responses, which, as you can see, this normalized entity, which is the one I put in Stack Overflow at the beginning, is pretty similar to your original JSON. It's just got this additional structure. And as I said, as I point out, you can actually get the JSON coming out as well. But you need to have a proper machine readable version. And NGSI LD is just that. It's just for the normalized version, you have your at context, like you have in any lump of JSON LD. You have ID and type, which are actually mapped to JSON LD at ID and JSON LD at type automatically. And you then have, for each attribute, it's either a property or a relationship with either a value or an object. So this is in itself valid JSON LD, this normalized payload. The difference between NGSI v2 and NGSI LD is mainly in the details of the API. As you can see, I've highlighted on screen some of the differences. NGSI v2, you don't need this at context. NGSI LD, you do need this at context, either as part of the payload or alternatively as a link header. We'll come to some of those later on. And you can see that on the left-hand side, NGSI v2 said, okay, I will give you different names for my different attributes. So address, I'll give it type postal address. Whereas for NGSI LD, it's done with this at context file. So you can only have properties, geo properties, relationships, language properties, and that's it. You can't have a type called Boolean. You can't have a type called temperature or whatever. It has to be one of those well-defined names. You can see that it's now necessary that your IDs are URNs, which is obviously a good thing for linked data. And the endpoint has changed, fair enough, but also the content type. The content type, there is a well-defined MIME type for JSON LD, and obviously it's used by NGSI LD for its JSON LD payloads, because JSON LD is JSON LD. Ontologically, the data model behind NGSI LD is now richer, in that for those of you who know NGSI v2, you used to have entities with attributes and metadata. Now you've got entities with properties and relationships, but you can also have properties of properties, or properties of properties of properties. If we go back, if we went back to that snippet of NGSI LD I showed you earlier, you can see that you had an address which could be verified. That's metadata. It's information about that information, but that is a property of a property. And because of the way that the graph has been designed, you could go deeper and deeper and deeper as necessary. To be perfectly honest, I don't think many people will ever need to do that. However, it is possible within the data structure. Normally, you would have your value, like 6, and you'd have your property of a property like unit code, which is like degrees centigrade. so you know that this number 6 is not in Fahrenheit. So you can have standard metadata properties. That's probably about as deep as you need to go. It is possible to go further if necessary. This is how the thing is structured. You would always have an ID, which should be, as I said, is a URN or URI. You must always have a type in normalized NGSI formats. And in this particular case, this is a building. Now, as you can see, I've given it a really long name, but that could be, you could use that short name, just the word building, or that Japanese character within your payload, provided it's referenced in the app context. You have a series of properties which can be expanded, as I said, to being these long names. It is important that you have these mappings, but to be perfectly honest, when you're actually using the data, you won't use the long names. You always use the short names. The mappings are there so that you can extract the data from other systems. We were talking about data sharing. That's a whole project here. Now, as I said, you can have a property of a property, like verified field for the address, but you could also have a property of a relationship, or a relationship of a property. So these are able to map from one to the other. When we read entity data, it is possible to ask for various different formats. Now, you can see on screen the highlighted thing here is saying, I would like this data as application LD plus JSON. So I'm going to ask for a JSON LD response. However, you've also got this at the options key values parameter, which will reduce from being verbose format, where you've got values and address within address and what have you, and it will remove the extra data from the system. So it's just got the address, and you've got the name, and you've got a category. The category there I've deliberately expanded as an enum, but that's neither here nor there. Location is an interesting point. Location is one of these keywords within NGSI. That is where you put the name of where the thing is at, and it's should always be done as GeoJSON. That way you can use geofencing requests. So you can say, what's going on in this area here. It is possible to use alternate names for geo information. However, you'd need to change your API request to say, oh, by the way, I want to get the geo based on that attribute. By default, it's called location, and it can take any GeoJSON format. GeoJSON is again an output format, and I'll just put that a link in there as well. Just a minute. I think it's geojson.org, isn't it? Yeah, it's geojson.org. Put that link in the chat as well. So geojson.org defines how geometries are defined in NGSI. It's a standard for getting the data out as JSON. It is possible within NGSI LD to retrieve an entity as a so-called GeoJSON feature with appropriate properties. It is also possible to make a request for multiple entities and to get a feature collection, a series of features. This means that if you just request, I think it's called application geo plus JSON, then you'll be able to display the response directly on a GIS system because it's using GeoJSON as expected. So yeah, API offers multiple formats. As I said, for the attributes, an attribute is a location, but in theory, you could have called it also something like okibashi or standort or ubicación or place or located at or what have you. This is location is so important to context data that it is defined within the core context. The location is always called location. You can see if you look at the core context, which is one of those two URLs I'll put in the JSON. I'll just put that on the chat as well. This is the 1.4 core context. These are well-defined terms. And amongst the well-defined terms are some of the ones which you can see on screen at the moment, like value or type. Now, type maps to the JSON LD keyword at type. So that's you can use those interchangeably, basically. But there are also things like unit code, which are going to be the CFAT UN unit codes for CEL for centigrade, or FTR, FOT for foot, if you want to be imperial. There's a huge long list of them, and you can be certain that some of these names are constant across every NGS-ILD installation. However, for everything else, your definition of the world, you need to look at your data models, and your data models will define what those URLs are all about. I'll skip vocabulary because that's not relevant right now, but this is addressing category, fine. Okay, so that is a brief introduction to JSON LD, which is the very first section here. There are on screen, and again, I can distribute this, a lot of useful links. The Etsy specification link there is to the 131 specification. We're now up to 151 for NGSI LD, but 131 is supported by basically every context broker out there, whereas 151 has got some various bits coming soon. There are a growing series of tutorials on NGSI LD, which will be in many cases asking you to be looking at whilst I'm talking, and then we get onto the smart data models and what have you. So that is the end of section 1 of this recording, and I'm going to find out. Can I share the last slide of the links? Absolutely. Jorge, have you linked with me with LinkedIn yet? Because that's what I can send these things off directly much more easily if I do the announcements on LinkedIn, and they say do it to everybody, because rather than just send it to one person. You can see, and I'll put it here actually. I'll put another thing on the screen here. I can see that 8 people have tried to link with me recently, which is good news. I've got that up on screen. Wait, hold on a second. I'll get more links. Actually, no. Okay, actually, I'll do that. That would be. That's what I'm after. Hold on. Right, this is a useful link for absolutely everybody. FIWARE Academy has got links to literally every training course, every video, every webinar which I've done, and many others besides. If you look at the FIWARE webinars tab there, you will find everything from how to pass the FIWARE experts exam to how to find the appropriate open source license for your FIWARE components, how to use Orion, how to use Wirecloud, how to get your information out on Grafana, all sorts of useful information. And what's more, it's listing there's a summary of what the video is about before you even start, so you can work out which ones you need. Obviously, you might not be using FogFlow, but you'll be able to somehow find FogFlow is useful for this. Okay, yeah, I do want to use it. I'll go off and see the video, or if not, I'll skip it and move on elsewhere. I'm only around for 15 hours this week, but there's probably, I think there's about 50 videos now out there. So that's probably, it's like the box set. If you want to hear me speaking for hours and hours and hours, then that's the way to go. So as I said, that's the end of session 1. I'm going to have a short break because I need to stop my throat from getting dry. I suggest that we start again in 5 minutes, and then move on to the second section of this presentation. Meanwhile, I'm going to go into LinkedIn and start accepting all those links. If you've not done it already, please do so, and also start linking between yourselves. Welcome back, everybody. I hope you're enjoying your cup of tea. I've got mine here. Section 2, which is the second hour of this presentation, is a brief introduction to the basics of NGSI LD, or the NGSI LD API. I will recover or re-emphasize certain parts from JSON LD. However, the assumption for this hour is that you understand what those last 2 letters actually mean, and therefore we can actually get on with what we're actually trying to deal with. Once again, there are videos out there. These are not my videos. These are the videos from the JSONLD.org organization to explain what JSON LD actually is. It means that you can fiddle around with different formats, different ways of doing things. These videos are very good to get another viewpoint on how JSON LD works. This is the official one for the official people. Very easy to understand level. The one on compaction and expansion is the most difficult of those 3. But as I said, it means that you can change from your preferred, so my preferred names to your preferred names. Is the obvious way of doing it, and there are plenty of JSON LD parsers out there which will allow you to do the various necessary things. And that final link on there, of course, is the JSON LD playground, which gives examples. Now, the classic example of a JSON LD representation is a product, and if you go on to something like your favorite search engine, you will see that typically, if I'm going to go off and buy something, they give you a star rating. Now, the reason why a third-party search engine like Google or whatever understands that this is a product and understands that this product has got a star rating is because that web page has got some embedded JSON LD on it saying, yeah, I have a product which is based on the following data model. It's based on the schema.org product data model. And amongst the attributes of that data model is a star rating. And that's based on this long URL, which we recognize as being a star rating. So you can deal with that regardless of where the system is coming from. If you go onto SEO websites, they'll say, yeah, you need to know the basics of JSON LD in order to understand how to promote your product, how to get things to be sold on the web. Same slide as beforehand, so we won't go into too much detail. This is basically saying that NGSI LD is the extension of NGSI v2. I don't know how many of you have experience of NGSI v2. There are plenty of NGSI v2 tutorials based around a smart supermarket out there. The links are in that FIWARE Academy link I put in just before the break. But we're now talking about NGSI LD. There is a chapter in the NGSI v2 tutorial documentation on how to address NGSI LD as an NGSI v2 programmer. It's not the way I would do it if I'm starting from a greenfield site. From a greenfield site, I would say the very first thing you need to do is to define your world. Whereas the NGSI LD for v2 programmers, it's saying, okay, well, these are all the similarities. This is how things are similar. It's just adding in this extra at context line, which is true, but not the best way to start a project from scratch. In depth, we have two files which make up the at context. The one which every system has is a so-called core at context, which was that one of the links I gave you beforehand, which defines amongst, it's about 50 terms, I think, which must be common for all NGSI LD systems. Now, that might say we're stealing a lot of names which are useful, but actually it's not as bad as you might think, because about 20 of those terms are the standard GeoJSON terms, like feature, geometry, line, point, polygon, coordinates, and what have you. It's just a copy of the GeoJSON LD at context. And you can see, if you look on the screen, you see that line I've put in orange. You'll find GeoJSON have their own URL for the basics of GeoJSON, and all those elements which, like feature or what have you, which have got this thing before the colon, GeoJSON is saying it's from that particular file. On top of that, ID and type are mapped so that it is immaterial whether you mark up your data as ID equals something or at ID equals something. At ID is the one which is technically correct for JSON LD. So, but without the at symbol was what was used for NGSI v2. So both of them are usable. Moving down the screen, the idea there are, as I said, it's now I think 5 different standard types of attribute: property, geoproperty, language property, and relationship. It's 4, isn't it? 5. The reason why I keep thinking 5 is that the enumerations will be coming in at some point, but they're not there yet. Every single attribute must have one of these types, and they're all, as you can see, very generic. Relationships are links between different entities. All the others are some sort of type of property which have got some sort of characteristic. Now, the generic one is obviously property, but language property is a recently defined part in the core context, which is something which can either be returned as an object language map, saying, this is what the name is in Spanish, this is what the name is in English, the name is in French, the name in German, what have you. Or again, if you manipulate the API properly, you can get back a text value. And the text value we treated as a property. Geoproperties, as I explained, is there is typically an entity is frequently something out there in the real world with state. Something out there in the real world usually has a location. It might not if it's an abstract entity of some sort, like relating an inventory of something. but typically most entities have a location, and it is the location which is a geoproperty. You could use a geoproperties for start and end for a location, but it means you can do various other operations on there, and that's it. Then the next section, things like context source notification, context source registration, notification subscription, etc. These are formally defining the operations which are available within the API. So when I receive a subscription, it will come through and it will say, "Oi, I'm a notification type." And then after that, the ones which are the lowercase, because so far what I've been dealing with have been objects of some sort or types of some sort. Now we're moving on to the well-defined attributes. Certain attributes are well defined for the API for very good reasons. So, for example, coordinates are a fundamental part of the GeoJSON specification. Every location which is not null must have some sort of coordinates in it. They could be just longitude, latitude, just a point, or it could be a line, or it could be an area, or whatever. Now, one of the ones which is very useful here and used very frequently is observed at. This is it forms the basis of temporal operations, and again, this is metadata which is held as a property of a property. So if my value is 6, my property of the property will be an observed at such a time. Funnily enough, I personally tend to use a relationship of a property called provided by in the same place, so you can find out, this particular value was sent by this particular device. That is not defined in the core context, but it's fairly common. Unit code is another one, which is again, it's a non-rarefied attribute, which means it doesn't need to have this value, but these follow the UN CFAT codes, and then things like value and object are also in there. At the very bottom, you will see of the core at context file. You'll see the statement, command, whatever you want to call it, at vocab equals, and then this default context. What that means is that if you personally have not mapped a short name of yours to something known, it will fall into the core context. It will fall into this default context. Not particularly useful, because to be honest, no one is using the default context apart from your local system. No one knows what a default context /XXX actually is, because you're not publishing a real context to deal with. It's useful in that when I am internally dealing with a system and I haven't mapped my entire world yet, hey, I'm actually mapped to something. But ideally, you shouldn't find values in there. If you do, they will typically always return short names rather than long names. Okay. NGSILD, it's an evolution, not a revolution. You can see the difference between the two is pretty minimal. I'm defining in 4 bullet points. You've got a well-defined REST API using JSON and JSON LD payloads. The reason why you can get JSON back is because you can, in your headers, put the accept type accept application/JSON, in which case all this at context nonsense will be placed as a linked header. The body will be just pure JSON. So if for whatever reason you don't need to deal with expansion compaction operations, which is probable if you're using your own data most of the time, you don't need to worry about getting in the information from elsewhere. You can just say, okay, I want to have a JSON payload. It is also possible to, as I said, to get a GeoJSON payload, but that's just another specialization of JSON. There are the three basic operations of NGSI. You can do CRUD operations, create, read, update, delete on a /entities endpoint. You can see that the NGSI LD entities are under a different endpoint. And then you can also add in registrations and subscriptions. And the names of these are still the same. It's just a slightly different endpoint. There's only one context broker out there at the moment which will offer both of these, NGSI v2 and NGSI LD. Normally, if you're going to use NGSI v2, you'd use the classic Orion broker from Telefonica. Normally, if you want to try using both, you could use the Orion LD broker, which is currently under FIWARE stewardship. However, the well-defined interface for NGSI LD is available on any NGSI broker. You can use Scorpio, you can use Stelio, you can use Dejan, you can use all sorts of, there are plenty of context brokers out there, and they are all offering the same interface. Now I'm going to get on with a demo. Now this might take a little bit of time. Now, one problem I have with AirMeet is that I find it difficult to run my context broker at the same time as displaying. So what I will do is I will get hold of a short video to do the demos, because that way I know the demos will work. So just bear with me for a second. The video in question I'm trying to bring up is one of the FIWARE Academy videos. I'll be doing the demo section.
Good morning, everybody.
You'll hear me talking in the background in a sec. I've got, where's the thing? There we go. Demo. There we go. So I can now share that screen. Okay. It also has the advantage of, I know that the demo will work because I've done it before.
The existing API repairs, if you wish, you can still send subscriptions. I will just start up my broker with, I'm using Orion LD because it's fast to start up.
And now my video's stalling, great. Hold on a second, it was supposed to work. Let it buffer for a little bit. I'll just move down to low bandwidth for me. As I said, I'm trying to do too much at once.
And a MongoDB database. This is one of the core context components of FIWARE. I could be using Scorpio. There are other context brokers such as Stelio, which are joining the FIWARE catalog. They all offer the same interface. This one is just quick to start up, so you don't need to worry too much. If I first,
I should probably try and get someone else to do the presentation whilst I'm doing it, because it's still buffering for me. So I might need some help here, Key. I'll see if we can get this this up and running. Of course, I just put this here, the speaker chat. Okay, could you try running that video? Because at the moment it's I'm having difficulty on the bandwidth to present and do the video at the same time. So could you just try running that video?
Sure. Let me bring it up. Let me check which minute is this. 1 minute 28.
I can tell you what the.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Jason Fox.
Okay,
I'm the senior
wait
technical
a minute.
manager.
You need to do it from a certain. That's the right sort of thing. I just need to do it for a certain point. So. Start at 17 minutes 26 seconds.
Okay.
See if that will help. And this AirMeet system is great for when you're doing presentations, but when you're trying to do live demos, it just takes up so much processor that I've tried doing a live NGS ILD demo before. It's been really slow. Now the presentation I had, and I'm not quite sure why it's still buffering there. The presentation I've had has been done using a different system, and if necessary, I could actually send. Actually, that's a good point. I could do it that way. I'll put it this way.
Okay, so
right, there's an alternative. If Keys doesn't work, I'll send out the link yourself, and you can watch this video yourself. Link. So that was the link I was sending up. That's right. You can get rid of the. That's it. You can get rid of the. You can unmute first.
Check.
And get rid of the subtitles, or you can
I access my content?
Perfect.
And I can, and you can see this consists of two elements. This is a fairly standard way of doing it, by the way, in that I have my data models somewhere, and I have the rest of it NGS ILD core context. It is not entirely necessary when you are making calls direct to a context broker to include the latter one, but it is necessary if you are trying to use an external system to try and understand what is a property, what is a value, because obviously that is where those are defined. To create a data entity, it's just a simple post request, as you'd expect. We need to set the content type to application JSON. That's the important bit here. And then the rest of the payload is pretty much as you would expect. You can see I have an ID. This is a proper URN. The URN using the NGS ILD format. Fine, good. Which is then followed by usually a repetition of the type and then a unique identifier. This is store1. The type is, in this case, building. Building is defined in my core context, which is the bottom. And then I have a series of properties. I'm not going to add in relationships yet so far. And you can see here that I'm using a certain set context. The very first time you create your very first entity, most context brokers will take a little bit of time to actually process. That took a second or two. Now, the problem is that it must first search the net, find the core context, find any linked linked contexts, read those, get them into memory, cache them, and then we can use that a second time. So it now will recognize what that is when I create a second entity. Second entity is just another building in a slightly different place. You can see from my building, I have got, for a location, I've got what's called a geo property, which means I can do geofencing and I can do distance from type information. When I create the second entity, you can see it should be a little bit quicker. It was significantly quicker, because that way it's loading up the data and it's in memory. Having done that, if I look at my headers, just create a request to get my information, and I don't provide any specific linked data model, what I get back is interesting, to say the least. It's a mixture of long names and short names. The short names here, like location and type and value, are defined already in my core context. The long names I get back, like this category or the commercial here, those are not defined. These are pushed to the whatever I've set as my core context, because that's what I've got. And then things like schema.org address I've got because I've already defined that within my data model. If, however, I was to add in my core context, I then get back my usual short names for everything. You can see this should be pretty familiar, that it's just key value pairs, it's JSON, it's NGSI v2, near enough. Every single attribute has been given the type property or geo-property so far, but it's fairly standard stuff. You can see here also that I can also add in additional metadata. I have here a verified sub-property to my address. My information about my address, whether it's true or false, is a sub-property, and therefore we can get information about that. The typical use of this would also be for linking to other entities. So you could have a provided by attribute, which would then say this temperature reading came from that device, and from there you can easily navigate the tree of information. And you can see that the full, that's everything which is currently in my context broker. You'd very rarely want to do something like that. You're much more likely to want to do the usual things like getting an individual entity. Again, if we look at the headers, you can see I'm not putting in any particular context here. So once again, I would get the long names coming back if I am not providing anything, or nothing that is understood. If I move on to and actually put in a proper context, here we go, that data models context. And of course, I could put in a different one if I wanted to get different names coming out. I can then say, send this information, and I've just got my key value pairs. When I just get you can see I've got options key values here, so I'm just going to key value pairs. When you go for key value pairs, you will not get the metadata. You will not get the properties of properties. You will not get things like verified coming in. So this would be the sort of thing you could pass through on a subscription, maybe, or a request, if you are not a fluent NGSI LD endpoint, which potentially your third party isn't. They would be able to get the data back as if it's just simple key value pairs, which you've defined in your data model. Okay, very simple. Now, the first thing which you need to look at when you're using NGSI LD is that the way you retrieve information is based on the query language, which has its basis in NGSI v2. So it is possible to actually look up information for a specific entity using, say, the name parameter. If I have this, if I use Q, name attribute. So in this case, I would just obviously URI encode the string, because they need to be valid URIs, but the Postman is able to do that for me. I'm just saying I want to get a building with a name and key values. Okay, well, that's not going to work unless I say, okay, by the way, in my data model, I am providing the fact that this building is this FIWARE data models building. This name, which is in the core context, is a URI Etsy name. Internally, the long names are as follows. And you can then make a request. And because I have used this FIWARE data models context, it is able to give me back key value pairs for everything. And it says this is the only entity I'm going to get hold of. The key parameter is very, very, very flexible. And therefore, you can use it for different things. You can use it for checking arrays. You can look at it for checking sub-attributes and all sorts of useful things. But this is an example where I've set my Q parameter is, say, I would like to get buildings within the category of either commercial or office. And in which case, again, it would do a search and find out what ones come through. If you want to go deeper, and instead of looking at an attribute value as a string, imagine you have an attribute which is an object. Going back to the ones we saw at the top of the hour, address is usually a well-defined object. It's got things like country, it's got region, it's got street name, it's got all sorts of different layers of information. And this one, if I wanted to find out what is this address sub-attribute, so the address locality sub-attribute Kreuzberg in my buildings, I need to put this into square brackets. Now, square brackets are, again, not valid in strictly valid in URLs. So again, they should be URL encoded. Not a problem if you're using any library when you're connecting to a context broker. But that's the reason why we've got this %5b and %5d here, because those will be square brackets. So you use square bracket syntax on your attributes to get hold of sub values. And once again, find out I have got a building in Kreuzberg, and I've only got the one building, and it's this one on Friedrichstrasse. Okay, the alternative is, if you're trying to find out this address.verified, is if you have sub-attributes, sub-properties, properties of properties, then in this case you would use dot syntax. So the dot syntax is for information about the context information you've got. And the square bracket syntax is for sub-attributes of the context information you've got. So if I want to find out those which are address verified, again, key values will tell me what I can do. Finally, if I am able to do things like geofencing, which has got a somewhat more complex syntax, again, this 5b means it's in square brackets for the longitude and latitude. And there is this is defined in the specification. You can do near to, you can do overlapping and distance from. And it's saying, okay, I have got building, which is defined in my context. I have got the geometry type point, which is defined in the actual core context, because point is standard GeoJSON. And around this coordinates, what can I find near to, within a circle of? You can also do things like polygon matching or whatever, and then get the values out. So if I want to find out what is within 2 kilometers of
did you stop the video now? That's, I mean, that was actually much smoother than it would be if I was trying to do it directly on AirMeet. We've got another one there, and of course, it gives me an opportunity to shut up for a bit, which is great because I've got about 20 hours of this. So it's tricky. Right, I'm going to go back to sharing again. Right, so you should have got the demo there. It's nice to know it'll work because that way it's a video. As I said, all of these videos are available elsewhere. I've got one more coming up a little bit later on. Yeah, so summarizing, we've just got this format of LD plus JSON. If you don't put content type of LD plus JSON, it will assume that the payload is JSON only. You can put the a LinkedIn header, a linked header, LinkedIn header, to do the same job. But you can see the difference between NGSI LD and NGSI V2 is pretty minimal. We have, again, in that academy, plenty of NGSI V2 videos, and they are still relevant in that the operations are the same. The URLs might be slightly different. The payload might be slightly different, but you've got the basic idea. We've seen that one for the previous hour. We've seen that one for the previous hour as well, pointing out that these are all different ways you can encode the data. When you are setting up your data model, and my colleague Alberto will come up with that after 5 o'clock. You need to make sure that the structure is appropriately set up to work, and you've got to think, what are my attributes? What are my relationships? Particularly for NGSI and for the smart data models in general, there tends to be a very flat structure. You tend to have an attribute which is just an object or just a value. It makes it much easier than trying to have a deep hierarchy. You'll find out there are ontologies out there which says, this has a that, which is a that, which is a that, and what have you. And you're supposed to go down through your graph database. Doesn't really work in the real world. It's much better to have, I have a building, it's this address, it's this location. It's the reason why it was picked as a standard example. As I said, you can get things like relationships of relationships or properties of relationships. When you're reading the data, there are currently 3, not 2, it's on 2 on the slide, 3 types of response, either JSON plus this linked data at concept LD plus JSON, or GeoJSON. So all of these are perfectly valid ways of coming in. A response is always just JSON plus an at context. It's just whether that at context is hidden in a linked header or it's actually within the body of the payload. Obviously, if you are receiving this information in your application and you never want to deal with this at context attribute, why on earth would you bother putting it into the payload or just ignore it all the time? So you can get rid of it. Obviously, key values is going to be much more useful for developers than the normalized format. Normalized format is going to be much more useful for data exchange than key values, which is insufficient. You can have, if you wish, you can have 2 separate at context, one for the key values, one for the normalized. I said already, location is this location stuff rather than any of the other names you could give it. This is really the basis of the LD, JSON LD stuff, is that you have a standardized name. Relationships. Now, this is, I'm going to show you another video in a bit. There are multiple ways of looking at the way of linking stuff. So far, we've talked about standardizing your attributes, but we're now talking about traversing the knowledge graph. And it's a matter of being able to know that this entity is associated with that entity. That is what a relationship is. So there are actually 3 areas you need to look at when you are defining this. You can make a definition of that attribute within the entity itself. You can have, I am related to that entity over there. Fine, not a problem. That's in our payload. That's fairly obvious. However, you need to have machine readable links in 2 different places. You have the definition of the data model. This attribute is called provided by, or you also have machine readable definition within the link, within the at context under something called at graph. This is an advanced concept within JSON LD, which means you can actually put in additional information about that particular file. If we go back to the link I put in here, tutorials data models link. If you go back to the tutorials data models link, on there, and I'll put this onto here as well. It should change. Yeah, okay. So that's my at context. That is my definition of the world, all these pieces of information. However, I could also add in, and I think maybe the Japanese one's got it as well, I'm not sure. Where is it gone? I'm going to try and find out what the location is. There we go. I've also got the this. Oh, that's the wrong location. Whoops. Try and find this. Maybe the Japanese one's got it. Japanese context. I'll try the Japanese context instead. So that one's just got the at context. I think I'm not sure I've got the graph on there as well. No, I haven't got the graph on there. I'll have to bring something else up. Context. Just a minute. So I'll do it this way. GitHub. You'll find that all the information which I'm dealing with is actually available on the FIWARE GitHub, which is, I'll put the link in here whilst we're at it. And within the step-by-step, I'm just going to the GH pages, and I'll try and find out which file I'm looking for. Do it this way. Context. That's the one which you've got in there as well. Yeah, here we go. It's full context. This is the one I'm looking for. I've shown you the simple context. This one is the same thing, but it's got additional information in the at graph. Now the at graph starts here, line 85. So, for example, I am defining an entity called product, and this is additional information about that entity type. And as you can see, I have additional information about products placed here. So you can say a product is something sold in the store. Or for that matter, a product is the same thing in Japanese. And I can label it, and I can also say, well, a product is a tangible object. It's effectively an extension of schema.org thing. You could add in things like is it SOAS information saying this is nearly equivalent to, or it's or what have you. Now you can also get more information about the information between. I'm going to move something further down. Yeah, between. So I could have a shelf, and this shelf has got has got a relationship installed by, and it's going to be installed by an entity of type person. Now you can see that that is obviously information which you and I could read on that website which I was showing about 5 minutes ago, but it needs to be in a structured format in a graph for us, for machines to be able to understand what's going on. And again, you can see that all these relationships have got a certain amount of information. This is absolutely unnecessary if you're not going to be using this information. You only need to put into your app. You only need to have an app graph if you are talking about JSON LD. For the operation of NGSI LD context brokers, you don't need an at graph at all. However, once you have received the at context saying, this is the definition of my world, you've moved away from the data sharing into the actual use of the JSON, JSON LD. That's when this stuff becomes useful. So you could actually use this at context in the JSON LD playground, for example, to get hold of more information about what's going on. I'm going to come back to where I put the presentation. Okay, that's the one. introduction to NGSILD, and I'll get back to the right tab before I go further. So which properties? Wait a second. I'll start from there, I think it is. So I'll go view. So again, back to the slideshow. I think we've got the next demo coming up fairly soon anyway, so this may have been fairly pointless. Right, so that was a brief introduction to the various bits of the machine readable stuff. It's all stuffed into that app context. When you create an entity, you can add in attributes of type relationship, or if you want to go full verbose mode, which no one ever does, at context equals the URI etc NGSILD / relationship, because that's in the core context. You can always use the short names, and you can see here on screen that the difference between a property and a relationship is that a relationship always has an object as opposed to a value. You can see the value status of work in there, a valued number of items. And they are always going to take a URN typically, this product. So this shelf stocks the following product. This shelf is located in the following store. This shelf was requested by Bob the manager and is installed by employee 001. You can see it's pretty much the same thing as a property. However, it's referring to another entity. The advantage of this, of course, is that if I wanted to find out what employee 001 is doing right now, I could then make a second request to get hold of the additional information. Second request, you say, so why haven't I got all the information in one place? Well, you can do that as well if that's necessary for your use case. It's more a matter of duplicate the data as necessary. If it's going to be easier for you to do so and use it, you could put in additional metadata inside the property, saying, Bob installed this at such and such a time, or the name of the employee is so and so. You are then responsible for maintaining that information if it changes. So the advantage of having this as a link traversing the graph is you can find information about the next guy in the list. Classic example is I have let's say a heart rate monitor on my cow. I tend to use agricultural examples, and it says the heart rate of my cow is 0, which is not good. And the information was provided by device XYZ. Well, either my cow is dead, or if I go over to device XYZ, I can then get further information like battery level to find out the battery level on device XYZ is 000, and therefore it's actually the device that's dead, not the cow, which is quite useful. So you can see how it would work. You can see here relationships have got can be defined using type ID if you wish. You can. This is more information than necessary. This is strictly what's speaking what happens in the NGSI. In the key values version, because what we're saying is installed by is a URL, but what this type equals @ID is saying. Now, obviously, if you're using the normalized version, that's not true, because it's actually an object which has got it's a JSON object which has got an object and a type inside it. So you can formally define it like this. And this is what I was saying about the @graph. Got more information here. You can actually define additional information. Obviously, if you are going to have additional information like this has got RDFS comments in it, you need to define what the URL of RDFS is using the JSON syntax, JSON LD syntax. This colon at the end means that you don't have to keep repeating all of yourself all the time. Right, let's try another demo. I'll see if I can get this one working as well. Right, so if I put this in here, should you wish to look at it, Key, could you set up your video again? Because obviously my system is not powerful enough to run this properly. So if you want to steal the video and just start it from there, we can have a look at relationships.
The other half of NGSILD, the other bit of links, this is linked data, is that you need to be able to get information from other objects. As you saw from the concept of someone having a spouse, you have got a relationship between one person and another person. Similarly, you have here the concept you want to link from A to B. You want to link from,
move this up to the demo. It's a little bit early, so you can fast forward that until I'm actually doing the stuff on screen. So keep going.
Thermometer and the
it'll get rid of the slide deck. Just describe that properly. Just drag it a bit further along. Keep going. It's probably I'll try and find it myself. About 41 minutes and 10. That's it.
Should be this one.
Yeah, that's it. Background there, demo.
There we go, and it's loading data using a different core context. So I should start with some data inside it. If I just see if I've got some data in there. Yes, you can see I've got a series of buildings in there. Now, I'm not going to go through all my relationships. I'm just going to do a simple one. But to add a relationship, you just need to do a post, obviously, and we're going to put in that. We're going to put in two relationships here. You can just put in type relationship object X, or you can say located in, which in turn has relationships and objects. So all it is instead of using value, it's object. If I send that, it comes up with the usual no content returning value. I can then get hold of additional information. So if I just look at that shelf, you can see my shelf has now got all this stuff, which is because I'm using the long names. I'm not putting in my header yet. My link header, I can say, okay, I've got all these long names which are well defined. Reason why name and location are not expanded is that they are in the core context, so they are never expanded. To find a location of a shelf, it is purely a matter of using the attrs, using the attrs to find out which attribute we want to get. So if we go that, so get the key values of that object, and you can find out, okay, I've now got a shelf and it is located in that store. Similarly, I can find out the IDs of all of the items in the store by using the Q parameter the other way around, by saying, okay, located in store, what shelf values, key values have I got in this particular shelf? And you can see at the moment I've only set up one relationship. You can then use this information, and there are further tutorials and step-by-step, which can then navigate from A to B to C, and also we can set up more complex relationships as necessary.
that should be it, right?
Yeah, that's it. Fine. So we can stop the video there, and I can go back to sharing. It's a lot less stressful if I've pre-recorded my demos. I can tell you that. Share screen. Chrome tab. That's better. So that was a working demo. Right. Moving on. The other operations we've got here beyond CRUD, things like subscriptions and registrations. A subscription, as you can see from the structure here, is you can see that you can get a request based on this queue parameter I keep talking about. So saying if number of items is less than 10 located in store 1, do this, and it's got a notification. And the notification defines what the payload is. In this particular case, I'm asking for the key values format of number of items, stocks, and located in. And you can see on the right that you get back the attributes which you've requested. This means that you can do things like data persistence, for example, or in this case, low stock notification, or something which then fires another microservice. And microservices are able to then just deal with one particular job. This might be, notifying the foreman that you've got something going on. Now, registration's pretty similar. It's saying that the data for this particular information is held elsewhere. So in this particular case, I already have my building, same building entities beforehand, and it's saying this attribute properties or property names, depending on whether you're using an NGSI v131 context or later, is coming from that particular additional context broker. You can see this is context provider. In your case, you're probably going to we're doing data sharing, so I'm getting information from somebody else's context broker. A registration is probably retrieving that information, or alternatively, I'm getting data from somebody else's context broker. I do a subscription. I then pull the data into my own local system to refresh it, and I can just assume that the data I've got is mine. Now, obviously, which model you want to follow will depend on how valuable that data is, because obviously you will need to have some sort of commercial contract with some third party to say, can I steal your data or not? Subscriptions and registrations. Have I got the demo for that up and running? I don't know if I have actually. So I will leave that demo till later because we're running a little bit late on time, and I will just briefly explain what the point is, and then if we've got time, I'll do the subscriptions demo at the end. So as I said, the basic reason why you want all this linked data stuff is that I want to be able to use your data, and I can only do that if there is an agreed model out there, and the agreed model is saying, hey, I've got these following attributes. Classic examples, as said, was using the schema.org product. However, and this is where I now move over to my colleague Alberto, only 1 minute too late, sorry. We obviously have an awful lot more data models than just the ones in schema.org. Over to you, Alberto. You're currently muted, so you
yeah, I know. Sorry, I was muted. So I don't know what has been the dynamics. I don't know if the people has stopped for. I guess they stopped for 5 minutes before, isn't it?
Yeah, I've had a 5-minute break and a cup of tea. And now I'm handing over to you on time. And if I've got time, I'll try and do a subscriptions demo at the end.
Okay, because I don't know if it's convenient that we are stopped till 5:05 just to give them just
That's
a small
probably
rest.
A good idea, actually. It's like having the children's in primary school. It's playtime. Go out and play for 5 minutes.
Okay. So I'll go for it.
Yeah,
I'll go for it.
Seriously, it makes a lot of sense to take these short breaks because it keeps the concentration up, and that way you'll be able to listen to Alberto properly. So let's come back in 5 minutes.
Exactly.
And
I'll be here anyhow if you want to make any question.
Okay. Or you
I
can
will not tell the section, but instead just leave the section here, and we will start in 5 minutes.
Okay, we'll start in 5 minutes.
Okay. Hey, Jason, so you have a book for explaining. So
yeah, I've last time I ran this, I found that my PC couldn't deal with having a context broker and doing the stuff at the same time, so the demos were really slow. So this is why I was using my previous videos, which I did using GoToMeeting for the presentation.
okay, so I have I guess that's intense. Are they making questions, or are they?
So far, I've had about 20 of them linked to me on LinkedIn. Messages from my network are fine. Notifications. Notifications.
There's some question in the chat as well, Jason. Maybe you can address it too.
There's an example of a registration in all the where data is stored in another FIWARE-based platform.
Right, fine. I've got plenty of those. I'll try and get my registration up and running. Accept, most certainly. It's much better doing it this way as well, because it gives me a chance to stop speaking. Because obviously I've got a recording going. It's great. Because I've got 3 hours of this every day, every week, throughout the week.
That's terrible. That's terrible. Oh my God, I was, I think 3 hours. I've been teaching in some university, and teaching 2 or 3 hours a day. You have to start drinking all the day long, because otherwise you get with a sore throat by the end of the day. Or you can lose your voice. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Developer. So I'm seeing the capillary IT, project genesis, center technician. Oh, Manix is here.
Yep. He's following me around the internet on Big Store.
Yeah. Victor Sitchenko, researcher. Acting right now. Okay. Good afternoon. So hopefully you have enjoyed the first session by my colleague Jason, which used to be a quite brilliant speaker. Now let me share my screen. I have another session in a very slightly different topic. Let me find out which slide I have to share with you. Yes, this one. I guess let me put presentation mode. Okay, here we are. Okay, so thank you very much for being here. And hopefully we're going to enjoy this session about the smart data models. And I will justify why do you have to pay attention to this and how to make it. And I'm expecting to achieve 2 things during this session. One is to explain to you this, and the other one is to get feedback from you in order to improve it and to simplify the contribution to the smart data models. because the Smart Data Models is a collaborative project. I'm just announcing just the spoiler of the session, and this initiative cannot last without the contribution of the users. And you, as developers, you are one of the best users because you are innovating, which is rather good for the data models. So my name is Alberto Abella. I belong to the FIWARE Foundation, so I work for that, and I'm also running the Smart Data Models program, which I'll explain right now. Okay, so what are the contents and the goals? So you are going to know what's the Smart Data Models program. We will explain you what is and how it's governed. So, and we can introduce you to the specific verticals, and therefore, in order to achieve that, I will ask you, and I will put the link into the chat, that you have to fill into a shared document. So letting me see what are your main interests. I've seen something from the list of participants, but anyhow, maybe you have interest beyond that. Please, I will ask you to tell this to me. Okay, and the last point is, how can you be part of the Smart Data Models program, and how can you contribute? Okay, independently of your technical knowledge. A bit of technical knowledge is good, but it's not strongly required. Okay, we are making the things the simplest, the better. Okay, and let me go to the next point. So this presentation, let me copy. This presentation is available, and I want you to have it close, because some of the links you can take it from the slides. I will try to put in here into the chat, but maybe you can also willing to review it also, so you can get the presentation. And please, now I want you to do two things with the next link. Okay, I want you to get into this link. It's a white document, and if you want to contribute, I need you to put your GitHub user. If you put your GitHub user, I will grant you permissions on a repository on the Smart Data Models program, where you can do your tests. Okay, I'm going to open a new window. Here we are with this document. I'm putting into another screen, so I'm not seeing you there. Please get into this link, into this last link that you have into the chat, and please write down. Okay, I see that you are doing things here, and I will correct here. Right. Okay, water. Okay, I know that there are some people from the agri-food sector, but possibly there will be some others. If you tell me this, I will visit these data models if we have, because sometimes we don't have, and when we don't have, then that's your opportunity to contribute to the initiative. Okay, I'm seeing. Sorry for looking to other place, because I have another screen here. So utilities, water. Okay, water and healthcare, smart cities, building. Okay. Yeah, logistics. Oh, we are not that strong here at logistics, but maybe we have waste management. We have certain things. Yeah, transport. Yeah, well, transport is mobility is something that we are good at it. Let's say that. Okay, good for the users. For the one which smart cities is a quite wide concept for me. And water, okay, water. The point is that maybe we have many things, and when we will be visiting, we are not visiting everything that we have, or the thing that you need that you have interest in. Okay, carpooling. Oh, car parks. Oh yeah, definitely parking. Oh, parking is a is a hot topic. Let's say that, because with the new electric cars, parkings are really transforming. Okay, good. Oh my God, cycle logistics. You mean logistics by bicycle? Sorry, sorry for my ignorance. I'm not clear. Some of you have written cycle logistics. Or do you mean something regarding circular economy? I don't know. Logistics with. Okay, okay. Good, good. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going. Even I could share this. Let me here one. I guess that I could share this so you can see yourself here. Writing down transport documents. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to grant all of you copy. Sorry, shit. To the repository, copy. Okay, good. Settings. I'm granting you permissions. Oh my God, there's more people. Everybody has written his or her GitHub user here. Because I'm expecting to do it just once. Oh no, there's somebody. Okay, there is more people writing. Okay. Oh my God, I have. Okay, I guess that all of you are there. Okay. I'm Samuel. I'm granting you. Possibly check your email because you will be receiving an email with a confirmation of the report. Okay. Here. Okay, just I'm copying and pasting this. There you go. I guess that you have to. Oh, sorry, Dago, I'm not finding you. I put it in red because I'm not finding you as a GitHub user. I don't know who of you is Dago. Dago. I'm finishing. Okay. Please check your email as long as you have been invited. I guess that you have to accept before doing anything. Shit. Okay. Okay, I have 4 left. 3, here we are. So what I'm inviting you is the incubator repository. This repository is a repository where people, okay. I cannot find you multi-site lab. It's not I'm not finding you in GitHub. So maybe there is a misspelling or something like that. Please check it out. So you're seeing two GitHub users in red. These ones, GitHub is not finding that. So therefore, I'm not granting you permissions. So please correct, or I don't know what's the issue. Maybe you are putting, yeah, I know that, yeah, it's a small one, so it's a lowercase. Yeah, I got you. I'll try to figure it out. Okay. Let me try to fix it. Okay. Now, I'm not capable of finding you, m.daigo. M.daigo is somebody called Marco D'Agostino, but I cannot trust that you are. Amol Siddalab. Let me try that again. No, I'm not finding you either case. None of you. M.daigo and Siddalab. Maybe you are giving me the name, but not the user. Okay, so let me start because I don't want to use that much time. Okay, thank you very much. I'll check it out. Oh my God, there is more people here. Oh my God. I wasn't looking to this. Yeah. Oh my God, why is not copying this? I'm granting the last 4. Karen. I'm granting Weevil ABS. Here. Kippelstein. Okay, and now we finished. But for these 2, which are in, oh my God, somebody else. Are you sure that your GitHub user has? Okay, then I trust you. Okay. Yes. Benitez is here. Okay, so but for m.daigo and mul_Saidalab, everything is granted. So you will have received. And let me go back to the presentation. So this is the agenda. So I'll explain to you what is the Smart Data Models program, the structure, the current status, and how to become an actual contributor of the Smart Data Models program. And we'll try to figure it out, a couple of practical exercises, and you will have the resources for creating the data model, which is not that tough. So first, who are leading this program? There are 4 organizations. IUDX, which is an Indian organization, is part of the Ministry of Home Affairs of India, responsible for the data interchange between smart cities in India. Okay, they have adopted NGSILD standard, and they are creating a solution for the Indian smart cities to easily interchange. And they have adopted not only this, but also the smart data models in the Smart Data Models program for the standardization of the data interchange between cities. Okay, TM Forum is one of the largest, if not the largest, telco association across the world. Okay, the FIWARE Foundation, I don't think that you is required to introduce here. Okay, and Open and Agile Smart Cities, which is an association of cities for the cooperation and mutual learning about more than 150 cities across the world, most of them between Europe and Asia. Okay. So what's the let's say the key elements of this program, which are slightly, not slightly, significantly different from other standardization activities. So first thing is that it's a community. So it's not something which is not a standardization body, as you understand. Okay. So we are not ISO, we are not nothing like this, because our goal is not invent initially. Okay. But we provide detailed data models, and this is quite important, because we don't get into the, let's say, into the upper levels. So we don't design something that can be interpreted in several ways. So we provide something which is going to the last detail. So we define the attributes, and we define the data type that you have in these attributes, and we define the restriction these attributes could have. Because otherwise, the same standard could lead you to different implementations and to actual incompatibility between data sources respecting the same standard. Of course, these 4 organizations are working with many other relevant organizations, because none of these 4 organizations are capable to be experts on all the sectors that we are covering. We are covering mainly 12 domains and more than 50 subjects. Each subject is a group of data models. Okay, we check for the coherence and consistency between the data models across the different domains. So if we find out that there is an attribute called temperature, and the temperature is a number, we try to make that temperature will be a number for all the data models across all the initiative. Okay, we are agile. What does it mean? That we don't have a strong bureaucracy. So the time from there is a request for a new data model. If the request is complete, publication time could be 2 or 3 days, depends on the workload, but nothing else than that, because most of the process of publication is automated. Okay, we go for what we call it single source of truth that we'll explain later. So this is interesting for you because as a FIWARE users, okay, we extend the interoperability between the data sources that you are using. Of course, if you are going to implement something brand new, you don't have to design yourself. You can get the advantage or get the benefit of everything which is defined here, because it's explaining to the next point, everything is open license. Open license means that you can use as much as you want. You can copy this and you can modify and you can share the modifications. And of course, you can adapt for your specific needs. Imagine that in a data model, you need something else. You are entitled to do it. There is no restriction on that. Or you just want to use 2 of the 60 properties of a data model. That's good as well. Okay. There are no such restriction. Another difference, which is, I guess, a radical difference between this program and other initiatives, are that we are based on real case scenario or open or adopted standards. Real case scenarios, meaning that it's based on something which is actually working in a use case. So it's not just something that you have defined in your desk and thinking, oh, the water management should be this way. No, there are people who is actually managing, I say water or any other sector. Oh, sorry. One moment, please. Let me. Sorry for the interrupting call. I'm back. So, yeah, I was telling you that we are based on real case scenario, and we are using Git as a platform, and currently GitHub.com as development front end, but we are using Git. If tomorrow we want to migrate, imagine to GitLab or to other source, it could happen. Okay. We use consensus as main decision method. So when there is a kind of conflict, okay, but it rarely occurs. Okay, very rarely. And we are also based on widely adopted standards. Standards like what? Let me go back to the sectors that you have mentioned. Let me go here. So sectors like in water, we're using the software or mapping the software EPANET, which is for the. In parkings, there are some standards, but we are using just part of the DATEX specification. In energy, we have mapped the common information model. In ports, we are starting. In transport, we have the GTFS and GBFS, so the mobility for generic things like GTFS and GBFS for bike mobility. I don't remember here. For environment monitoring, we are trying to map the sustainable development goals. We have something here. For digital twins, livestock, okay, don't remember more standards map here. But we are not here for inventing things, okay? Unless there is nothing. So what are the differential advantages? Agile, so what we take as weeks could be years in a usual standardization body. It's easy contribution. There's one single file which is the source of truth of the data model. Okay, based on this file, we generate automatically the rest of the things. It's based on actual experience. We are translating right now into 6 languages, so English, French, German, Spanish, Japanese, and Italian. 5 of these specifications are automatically translated, although the tool is good. It's not a native specification, okay, but it's done in let's say in seconds after the English version is available. Okay, and everything is linked, so whenever you change the weather for the weather data model, it affects in the smart cities what it's using, in agri-food what it's using, in environment when it is using, and these kind of things. So why should you use the smart data models? So first of thing, don't reinvent the wheel. Don't waste your time, okay? There are many attributes defined. Maybe if you are going to create a brand new data model and this data model is not existing, we have mapped more than 16,000 attributes. It's a good opportunity to find out something there and a definition. So the specification, there is no work on translations, okay? And in every data model, you have examples, actual examples, okay? Whenever there is an open or adopted standard, we implement it, okay? Therefore, you don't have to study the standard. Many cases, you have already, somebody has done for you, okay? Everything is open license, so you can do whatever you need. And we do not impose any restriction on using additional or use part of the attributes. So what's the structure? A data model has 3 things. A technical description, which is implemented in JSON schema. Hopefully you send your reference to. Okay, sorry, I'm reading the comments that you are here. Yes, you can send your reference to Git after. Yeah, certainly. Okay, so a technical description in JSON schema, a documented description describing every attribute together with the definition in 6 languages, and some payloads of the examples, and payloads in the 4 output formats based on NGSI. NGSI has 2 main versions, NGSI v2, which is the old one, and NGSI LD, that is the one that I guess Jason was explaining to you mostly. Every version has 2 output formats, key values and normalized. So you have 4 examples coming from these 2, okay, in every data model. And what is not, what cannot you expect here to be? So we are not an ontology describing the elements of an area of knowledge. We are not, and we are not pretending to be. We are not here for creating new standards. If there is an existing standard that is working and the people is using, we are here just for adapting to NGSI and let you use it whenever you want. And it's not an academic exercise. So you cannot come here. Oh, I've designed this because I think this could be very useful. And our answer will be always the same. Do you have a use case? And if the answer is no, then come back when you have a use case. Because it's very different, the things, when you are designing than when you are implementing, actually. Okay. So this is the structure. And instead of seeing here, we're going to see directly into the GitHub repository. There is 12 main domains, okay? And there are several subjects. And instead of seeing here, just the definition, we are going to go there. Let me stop here and go directly. This is the GitHub repository. There is a main repository called data-models. And here you have many things. Okay, let's go initially for the main domains. Here in the specs, you have here 12 domains like cross-sector, sensoring, aeronautics, agri-food, smart cities, smart destinations, which are related with tourism. Okay, Val is telling you if you have any kind of questions, you can make it in the chat. Okay, environment, manufacturing, water, and so on. Okay, you can see it here. So if we get into smart cities, okay, let me go to the last commit. We have different subjects: building, parking, parks and garden, points of interest, sports, street lighting, transportation, urban mobility, waste management, and weather. And this could grow as much as we want, depending on what are the needs. Okay, you have here a definition about what is the smart cities, and we can get into some of these subjects, which is the parking. Okay, in the parking, you find out that you have 5 data models. Every directory is a data model. And these 3 elements that I've explained to you are here. Let me go to the first one. Okay, let's go to the last version. I guess it's the last one anyhow. Okay, you have first the schema. This is the technical schema. Okay, I don't know if you're quite familiar with this, but you see that in every attribute you have a description. Okay, and this description has a kind of a grammatic which is explained into the contribution manual that we will see later. Okay, you have, this is an array, and these are the categories for the items. All of this. Okay, external category, the allowed vehicle type. This is a good example. Okay, because this can grow definitely. The charge type, and you see that there are many things here, and everything has a description. Okay, of course, look into this data model and trying to read the here is only for really fans of technology. So it is not friendly at all. Okay, but everything here, and you can see what is required for using this data model. Just 3 attributes. 2 of them are mandatory of the NGSILD standard, which is ID and type, and additionally location. Okay, so instead of reading this way, there are specifications which are always located into the doc folder, and then you have a specification here, and you have several elements. So everything that you have in this schema appears here in a much more friendly way. Okay, so the order alphabetically the attributes that this data model is having. You can see all of them. Okay, they are available. It's telling you what are the required ones. There are some additional text that can appear into the specification, because sometimes it's telling you the origin or some thing related for the use, these kind of things. Additionally, if I expand this, you have the technical description in YAML. Okay, so you can understand from the technical point of view what data type you have. This is an integer, whatever. Okay, everything, we can collapse it. Collapse, yeah. Here we are. And then we have the examples. These are actual examples of these payloads. This is for the NGSI v2 key values, and we have NGSI v2 normalized. We have NGSILD key values and NGSILD normalized. Okay. So with this, you can understand exactly how this data model is being used actually in any use case. What else do you have here? Sorry, off-street parking. You have also, okay, some nodes in which you are capable of customize the specification. So whenever you are creating a new data model, if you want to include some additional text, this file is the place for including it. Let me go. And here in the README, you have the specification, and you have the link to the specification into the different languages, the link to the examples, and to this interactive specification. Okay. You can deploy it here. So which are the same values that you have. Okay. And we have also these links to some generators. What are these generators? We can generate payloads which are compliant with the data model for testing purposes. Okay, if I'm clicking here and everything goes well, it's not going well. Okay, let me try one. Why is not? Maybe it's my fault with this model. Let me go to a different one. I want you to see it. Oh, here we are. I'll check it out why it's not working. So what you can see here is a payload, which is an example compliant with this data model. If you refresh the screen, then there is a new one. So you can call it from any resource, and then you get a payload compliant with this data model. This is in normalized. This is key values, which is simpler. Okay, here we are. So we can refresh, or eventually in your JSON footer, which is another format. I don't know if it's useful for you, but you have available. Okay, and if you find out anything which is not working, please let me know. Like this one that I've been using of street parking. I don't know why is that. Additionally, here in the examples, you have some CSV examples. So imagine that you are not using NGSI platform, which is not a good decision, but of course it happens. So you have this CSV, and then you can see it this way or just in the raw format. Just you can take it and have an example with the names of the attributes and so on. Okay. And additionally, from some of the data models, because not all of them are capable for compatibility reasons, there is an output in DTDL. DTDL is a JSON format compatible with a Microsoft tool. Okay, digital twin description language. Okay, you have it here as well, and possibly in a coming future there will be some others like SQL or some other things. Okay, you have also here the adapters. I don't know if there will be adapters because this is empty, but this is happening because there are many use cases that they are not willing to disclose where this data model is being used. Okay, and you have also here into the root of every subject a contributors file. Here is where you can appear if you contribute to a subject, if you are willing to, because this is, let's say, optional. But you can be here with the name of your name, your email, if you wish, the organization or the project or any kind of comments. Okay, this is absolutely optional, and if you wish to appear here, you can whenever you contribute to the data models. Okay. Let me go back to here. So we have seen the one domain, which is smart cities. We have seen several subjects. these subjects could belong to several data models, so to several domains, like weather. Weather belongs to smart cities, of course, but it also belongs to smart destinations, because tourism is affected by weather, certainly. And it's also available into the water domain and into many domains. Weather is quite the blockbuster. Okay, and there are two additional repositories. One is called Incubated, which is the one that I've showed granted permissions to you, and the other one is Harmonization. What are these repositories for? Incubated is for doing tests. Okay, we can create things there, and don't worry if you don't reach anything, don't mind. If you break everything, don't mind, because this repository is for this. It's just for testing. Okay. However, harmonization is a repository for those data models which are basically being accepted, but they are missing some kind of feature, or maybe the documentation is not completed, or there are some description missing, and these minor things before being accepted into the mainstream of data models of the program. Okay, let me put this into a slideshow. Okay, and what I've showed to you is just this part, which is the github.com smart data models. But there is a main site, and this main site really was to have a visit. Okay, because it's the site that you need to go whenever you need to be updated, or there are some tools for testing the data models. Let me show you. You can see here in this rectangle inside, there are the links to the 12 different domains, okay, and also to the incubated and harmonization. If we click here in the smart water, we see the 6 subjects of water, and we can go to open channel management, and then you see, in this case, there are, I guess, 9 or 10 data models here, okay? And of course, you can go directly to the incubated repository. There are many tools. Possibly the most useful for you will be this one, the search tool. This search tool is listing all the data model, all the attributes and descriptions and data models and subjects that we have into the program. Imagine that we want to check for temper. Okay, then by writing down, we identify every attribute which has tempera. Okay, here, and it's telling us in what data model is this attribute available, in what subject, what data type do you have here, and the description, if it's a property, a geoproperty, a relationship, whatever. Okay, if there is a reference model, and if there is any kind of tag. Okay, we could go here. Okay, this is to the subject, and is taking us directly to the GitHub repository. From my point of view, is this much more quick than if you go directly to the smart data models, look for the name, because possibly many of the searches you don't know what are you looking for, and once you got it, you have here the link. If we go here, we go directly to the folder in which this air quality monitoring is available. So we could go here, go to the specification, understand what is this data model talking exactly, or go directly to the examples below. Okay. So this search tool, I guess it will be one of the things that you can really use on a daily basis. Okay. What else do you have here? Of course, you have something, the list of data models. When you are not looking for so precise, you can go here and you have the list. Imagine that we are looking at a data model which talks about vehicles. I put something, okay. Everything related with vehicle, it could appear here, okay? So fleet vehicle, vehicle, yes. We could go here and we have the specifications. Okay. Maybe you don't understand why is this sentence here, document generated automatically? Because when we are asking the contributors, we don't want anything else but a couple of files. There are people who is sending us the specification translated. No. We are reducing to the minimum what is required for contributing here. Okay. So you can search. If we go to the front page, there is another link that is very important for you. Two of them. First is the contribution agreement. The contribution agreement is mandatory. Whenever you are willing to contribute here, you have to fill this form. Why do you need to fill this form? Because when you are contributing to this program, you are telling, oh, I'm the author of this, and I'm willing that this data model is being released with an open license. And therefore, you are giving, as an author, the right to us to release with an open license. And of course, you are telling also implicitly that you are not having, let's say, copyright issues or patents that could affect this data model. You just need to provide your name, your email, your GitHub user, and if you are applying as an individual or as an organization, in the case of organization, you put the name here. Okay, you click, and that's all. So you can fulfill the contribution agreement in maybe in 20 seconds, no more. And the other thing that we need to go, we'll go later, is the contribution manual. The contribution manual is explaining you how to make the contribution, which is rather simple, but there is a presentation with several slides. So let's go back here. We were reviewing the main site of the smart data models. Let me close some of the here. Okay. So what else do you have here? This post is telling you what's happening into the program. This post is quite remarkable because thanks to an agreement with Open Connectivity Foundation, which is an association of sensors and IoT devices, we have 69 new data models. Okay. We can get into this post explaining why is this happening. There is a new subject. Okay. And here is quite lengthy. The description of these 69 data models. This is not happening on a daily basis. The usual news are 1 or 2 data models. 69 is absolutely extraordinary for the moment. Okay. What else do you have here? You have several tools for, you can subscribe to the news. So instead of visiting this page, because I don't feel that you are willing to visit this page on a regular basis, what for? You can subscribe and we send you an email once a week with the updates, okay? We can click here. You just put your name and copy this and put it into the chat. And then you put your email, subscribe to the list, and then you receive once a week the mail. Okay, you don't need. What other support mechanisms do you have? Okay, we hold. You see here once a week. Okay, and this has been done, and I haven't updated. Every Monday at 2 p.m. Central European Time, we are holding just a 30-minute session live. Okay, then you can go there and make your questions, or if you want to know what are the last updates about the initiative, we can tell you. Okay, you can add it here to the, you see here is a bit small, to your calendar, and then every Monday you have here. Okay, what else do you have here? We have some services which are quite related with what Jason has explained to you into the previous session, which are services related with the context. Possibly you haven't noticed that there, when we were visiting some of the data models, of a file which is context.jsonld. This file is providing you with the IRIs of the terms used in all the data models of this subject. So if you see here all these all these data models, okay? You see them. So everything described here is into the context.jsonld, and you have a long IRI. It is true, as Jason has mentioned, that these IRIs don't need to be taking you to anywhere, okay? But in this case, they are. So if everything goes well, okay, you copy this, and it's providing you with some additional information, which the definition of this term, what data type, in what data models is being used across the subject, and if it's a property, a geoproperty, a relationship, or whatever. Okay, so but this is not required for. Oh, sorry. Okay, it's not required, but in this case we are using it. We are using these ARIs. Okay, and you can see that for all of them. Okay, let's say this one. Oh, this is a short one. Huh? I'm just. Oh, no, this is not, because this is one of the generic ones, and these pages are not generated. If we go to this one, it will be generated. Okay. Sorry. Here we are. Okay. So we were talking. This context.jsonld is providing you long RRIs for your context. But what happens if you are willing, as Jason mentioned, you are willing to use another context, your context? What you can do is go to the main page of the Smart Data Models program, and then here you have two services. First is for generating a local context. Okay, I'm going to click here. And what is this service for? Imagine you are merging 4 or 5 subjects. Imagine that you are talking about the sensors in a building related with the weather and these kind of things. You are merging many things. And this service is helping you by merging all the context coming from these subjects. And it's detecting what terms are, let's say, individual, so there's no conflict on them, but they also identify which ones could have a conflict because the category of the building is not the category of a sensor. Then you have here the context, everything, and you have another, which are the conflicts that you have to solve manually, okay? Sometimes like category. Category is defined in the 3 of them. So maybe you have to do something for mapping this. Okay, but imagine that we have merged these three data models. Oh, how many is left? I guess that I have to finish at 6, so there is 5 minutes left. Oh my God. Okay, so I'll finish soon. I don't think that we get into the practical part. Okay, imagine that you are willing to use schema.org, okay, or Etsy, or Saref, which is an ontology. This second service is helping you on mapping this local subject with whenever ontology that you have around there. Whenever, no, there is 18 right now, but and if you send us an email and ask, why don't you map this, we can do it, okay? So here we have this link, and it's mapping all the data model, this data model with IRIs coming. This is coming from Etsy. This is coming from, let me enlarge it, from Schema. This is coming from Pearl. This is coming from Etsy, okay? Different ontologies. You can use. Okay. And let me go back this and go here. And I guess that I've visited, and before we finished, just some statistics. So this is the split of data models in the different domains, okay? This is the subjects. This is the last subjects that has been created, okay? This is how many people is contributing. There's 111 people, which belonging to 71 organizations, and they have contributed 220 times, okay? So the average is 2, okay? And what else? This structure I've explained to you. I've explained to you these contents, and let me go directly to the contribution manual for a moment, and we are going to review just one of the slides. Okay, this contribution manual, which is into the front page. If we go here, there is here contribution. Sorry, I'm trying to here the contribution manual. Okay, here we are. So this is the process. Everything is a link that you can follow. These are the files that you have to contribute. Initially, only the schema and the examples. If you want to customize, you can use the notes. If you want to give credit to the use case, the adopters one. And if you want you to be credited, you can add the contributors. Nothing else. Nothing else. No README, no model, no Swagger, nothing else. Everything else that you send to us will be rejected. Let's say that. Okay. And this is, let me go here. In every description into the JSON schema, you have an extractor. Let me see this extractor. Imagine temperature. Oh, sorry. Temperature. We are saying that it's a property because we say that here it's mandatory to have either a property or a relationship or a geoproperty. And all the rest of the elements has to be separated by the dot and a space. Okay. And you can include the model, the recommended units, the enumeration terms. If you want to include privacy, and if this is multilingual, indicates that the attribute will be a multilingual script. And a mandatory description with not less than 15 charts. Okay, 15 charts, not words, charts. I don't think that below this can be anything meaningful. Okay. So unfortunately, I guess that I've extended a bit much that I was expecting. Let me go because I don't remember if we finished at 6 or at 6:30. Oh, 6:30, 6:30. Okay, so we can.
We have time.
Yeah. Okay. No, because I was absolutely jumping. Okay. This contribution manual is also telling you how to implement the multilingual attributes. This is quite unlikely. How to pass a test. Let me go to the front page. Whenever you have a new data model, you need to pass a test if it is properly documented, but you don't need to send us an email and wait for an answer. You can do it yourself. Here you have check your schema before contributing. Okay. And then what you have to do, just provide the URL to the schema, but not to the schema, to the raw version of the schema. So you are not giving us, let me go to here. Oh my God. I'm going to go to any data model here. The smart destination, weather, okay. If you give us the schema.json to this page, it will fail. Why? Because it's not the raw version. The raw version is when you click here in raw. This is what we are expecting to have, just a raw version of the schema, okay? Let me go back here, exactly. And we are asking you also to put just your email. Why is that? Not because we are collecting emails, because when we detect somebody is using this tool, we want to help. And we know that sometimes there are things that are not working and these kind of things, okay? So you can put the URL of your schema and your mail here, and then click. Once you click, is exactly the same result as if you put this long URL, in which you have a schema URL as a parameter, the raw version, your email, and test one, because it's something we are expecting to have more tests than this. Okay, this is a quite valuable service. And now let's make a check. And we have another resource for checking, for validating a payload. Imagine that you are creating a data model. We're asking you if you have an example. Let me go to this data model. I'm going to copy this data model. Okay, the schema, copy. Okay, I'm going to remove, where were we? Sorry, I don't remember where we, okay. Nothing happens. Okay, we are going here, validate. And then it takes us to an external site. Why is taking to this external site? Because they are doing free and much better than anything that we can include. So we are seeing that we are C conditions. Let's go to the C condition examples. It's only validating, this schema is only validating the key values. So I'm taking the key values. Example.json is the key values. Copy. And then let me, what is the, here. Paste here. And it's telling you, oh, this validates. If I imagine I remove a comma, it's telling you this is not a valid payload. So it's really helping you on fixing everything. And they provide you with a meaningful, with a meaningful guidance about what's going on and what line. So this is a great resource. So, okay, we don't have any kind of relation with this organization, but it really works well. Okay, and regarding the contribution manual, let me close some of the, because we have everything. Go to this contribution manual. It's telling you what to do and what not to do. Let me go. It's explaining you every document that you have. We have started by the schema because it's the main document, it's the single source of truth. But let me go. Yes, this is the schema, but the examples of the payload, how to put the name for this, what name correspond to what format, and this cannot be changed. Okay. Here there is an example. If you click here, you go. Okay, for an example of this format. Okay. How can be the contributors.yaml? Let me show you. Okay, I'll show you some. Okay. Or the adopters. You can use, you saw an empty one, but here you see one which is filled. Okay. This is the way that you can mention, imagine your use case of the project, and then you can appear here. Okay. And this beyond this point in the chapter 2, everything is here just for documentation purposes, because none of this has to be made by you. Everything is done automatically. So I'm just skipping. I'm going. This is the how to make a contribution. Okay, how to make the pull request. What to do in case that there exists a domain or subnet, or that there is not. Okay, how to make it just by a form. I'm not recommending this way, but there are some people with low technical knowledge, and maybe it's the only possibility. Okay, how to raise an issue, and these are, let's say, the compilation of practices. And we have here, so none of this has to be done. So because for no reason, but you are wasting your time. Okay. Okay. This is the changes in the document. Okay, let me go, because I guess that we can go for the exercise. Okay, I'm expecting you to have a bit of knowledge about NGSI. Hopefully you have. If you have ever worked with a context broker, and if you have some knowledge of JSON and JSON schema or a code editor. Okay, the first thing that I want you to do is just to go for any of the data models that you're interested in. So imagine, I'm going to do an example, but I want you to do it. Imagine that I want to look for a data model about water, let's say. Un data model, yeah, water. Okay, there's water, observe. Okay, copy. Okay, this is now let's go for the schema and the raw version of the schema. Okay. We copy this, and then we are going to generate an a key values example. And if everything goes well, because there are from time to time there is issues, and if there is any issue, please let me know. We paste here this link, we put our email, and then accept this, and if everything goes well, okay, here we are. Okay, we are generating payloads for this data model. And now I want you to do the same. So choose the data model that you wish, go for the schema, put into this form, and generate a payload compliant with this data model. I guess that you can do this in 2 or 3 minutes. Okay, the service for generating this, let me go. I'm going to paste it here. Copy link, yeah, here. So please, what I want you to do with this, first, that you are capable of finding a JSON schema corresponding to a data model that you're interested in, and you are capable of generating a payload which is compliant with this data model. So you can see how is the output of something which is valid against this schema. So please put your comments. I'm going to try to go to the, let me go to the document that we have at the very beginning, just in order to see the, and I'm going to browse the, okay. Healthcare. Healthcare is one of our pending issues. This year, we are going to go for that, okay? Water and air. Water is quite easy to find out. I'm expecting you to be doing this example. So water. So if I were you, we could go smart water, okay? And then you see everything that we have directly related with water, because the weather is also somehow related with the water management, but it's not here, okay? But you have water consumption, wastewater, okay? We can visit and see what is in here. What else were you looking for? Smart cities. Oh, smart cities is also easy to find out. Go directly here into the front page. You have smart cities. And here you got what we have, okay? Building and real estate. Yes, certainly here in smart cities, there is a building subject. Is not, there's not much, okay? Okay, when you see enclosure incubated, this is something which is in the incubator repository, is pending to be here, okay? Building operation, building type. Regarding waste management, yes, is in smart cities as well. Let me go here into the front page. There is for waste management. You can see here below waste management, and there are 3 data models here. Regarding smart ports, okay, smart ports is something which is available right now, but I don't know if it's not, let's say it's for more touristic. We have here smart ports. All these 5 data models are available. Logistics. Okay, logistics, we don't have that much. Okay. Or psychologistics. Psychologistics can be, we have things in the GBFS standard. If you are not familiar, GBFS is General Bike Fit Specification. Okay, and it's a specification for bike and scooter mobility. Okay. So there is 12 data models, I don't remember, okay, but this is, no, even more, 3, 6, 9, 12, 13, yeah, 13 data models here, and it's an open specification, so it's leading you generate, I'm seeing broken, so Point of interest. Let me check. Copy. It's not impossible. Okay. Now it's working. You have a problem because you have a closing parenthesis there, I guess. So, but you can see that it's working for me. So I'm not anybody special at all. But it could happen. And thank you very much. And this one is copy link. Let me go. If it's broken. No, this is not. So it's working. Guy, okay. So you don't have much about it, but duplicate this data. Oh, this is quite interesting. The question is made in Rudy on the chat. If UNCFACT is a standard, is an open standard, we could map it, which is happening in many things. So can be used if UNCFACT is allowing us to do it. So the generation of point of examples for key values is broken. Point of interest. Let me insist on that. Okay. Let me check. Oh, I have here. Sorry. Point of interest. Let me go to one of the schemas. You can be perfectly right. Okay. It's not impossible. Okay. Row version. And what? Let's go to the front page and try to create the examples in key values. And supposedly we paste here, put my email, and hopefully we are reproducing the error. No, there is not such error. Maybe, let me insist, you are pasting not the raw version. What I'm pasting is a link which is taking me to this thing, not to the version that you can see in GitHub. So the version, the web page, this is has to be the raw version. If it is not the raw version, it's going to be broken for all the data models. Okay. Sebastian is telling us something. Copy. Oh my God. Energy sim. Okay. No. Okay. I guess that is pointing here because it's good. Okay. And let me skip because I want to use the last 15 minutes for telling you how to create a data model in fact. Okay. So you have done a good job. And thank you, but don't hesitate if you find out anything broken, that it happens because we are an agile initiative and we are, let's say, changing on a daily basis, okay? We are doing it on a daily basis, and of course, it can happen that something got broken, of course. But the good point is not that something got broken, but we fix it the sooner we can, and the sooner could mean just a couple of minutes, couple of days, or a couple of weeks, depends on the thing. But we are onto it. Okay. In fact, if we go to the main page, what you see, let me enlarge. You see here into the right part, this section called pull request and issues. So every 5 minutes, we are monitoring all the repositories in the program, including the incubated one. That's why it's quite interesting that you work there. We're monitoring if there is a new pull request. And if there is a pull request, we go there and we try to solve it. Let me show you an example. So this person were complaining, oh, there is something which is not well defined, and he explained why it's not available, and then that's right. This guy was right. So we launched a survey to the people. What will be the consequences of implementing this change? Nobody blame against it, and so by the end we are going to implement it. And this was done 4 hours ago. Okay, this is the kind of things that we are doing. So let's go to the last thing that I want to show you. let me go here, which is the creation of a data model. Oh my God, I'm going to close to the right. Okay, so we go to the front page, and there is a section here, which is draft the data model. This is the link that you have to click. Draft the data model, but not in the sub option, into the main. Okay, and you see that it's taking you to a new page in which there are 6 steps for creating your data model. Okay, it is also true that there is a video. There is a video here. There is a learning zone in the upper part of the here. Let me go and paste the link for you. This is the learning zone. So there are, okay, rolling no GitHub link, exactly. Shit, yeah, here. This is the link. This learning zone has 3 videos, okay, which is explaining to you exactly what I'm gonna do right now. Okay, so if you don't get all the details with me, don't worry. You can visit these videos. This video is 2 minutes long. This is 4 minutes long, and this is 3 minutes long. So 9 minutes in total. So not that much to learn. And for drafting a data model, first copy this text. Okay, so here there is a text. I copy. Okay, copy. I guess that I could improve this, copy automatically, but I haven't done it yet. So, and it takes you to an external resource, like the validation. There is people out elsewhere which is doing a very good job. Why you have to create your new version? I guess that this is quite aligned with our philosophy. So we are not here for inventing things that are already been working elsewhere. Okay, so we paste, and then suddenly you see on the right that there is a data model which is basically compliant. What things do you have to do only? If you noticed here, you see just a double slash, which is meaning that this is an attribute, okay? And it's explaining to you this section below, what's that for? So create a numeric attribute. Oh, and everything that has a triple X means that it's something that you have to change, okay? There are some triple X right there, okay? These are comments. Double dash means that it's a comment, so we can remove this, okay? And nothing happens. There is here, imagine that we are going to to create a data model about, let me check with you, some energy. Okay, something about energy. I'm going to use the data coming from for an actual data model. Okay, energy, there is a new data model. I don't remember if it's already published about solar energy. Solar. No, we haven't published yet. Okay, so let me go phreatic. Yeah, this is the phreatic levels. Okay, so we have, imagine the specification. We have pollution rate. I want an attribute named pollution rate. I can copy this, put here, imagine that pollution rate is something, paste here, and you see on the right that there is the name pollution rate is here, it appears. And I don't want this description, which is example of a definition. I want this description. Okay, let's go for it. Copy. Okay. Here we are. So, okay, here we are. And then this part of the data model, and this is the phreatic model, isn't it? So this will be into the, okay. Data model. This will be in environment. And this is phreatic level. I don't remember its level. I just phreatic level, and this is another data model. I'm going to put something like phreatic. Okay. Schema, something, pollution rate. I'm going to copy another attribute, something that could be Ref device, okay, ref device. I don't remember if there's for relationship. Yes, how to create a relationship. We put here ref device and copy the definition. Copy. And the description is here. Okay, so, but I want this to be at the very beginning together with the other attribute, and cut this. Pollution rate, here, paste it. And I don't want the rest of the things, okay? And then we have our data model here. We can copy. I don't know if it's working. Anyhow, I'm going to copy. Then we could go to the front page here for validation. Validate the payload. Yes, a valid JSON schema. So if you realize you don't have to know anything but the name of the attributes, the type, and put the corresponding definition. So most of the work is already done. Okay. So I don't think that you have time for doing yourself right now. Okay. But you can see the videos are really, I strongly recommend you. This videos is here in the upper part into a learning zone. And therefore you can use something so simple like this, like pasting lines. And if you don't know anything about JSON schema, it doesn't matter much. Okay. And of course, once you create this, you can create a pull request into the incubator repository, because all of you have been granted to work here. So I recommend you to create a new directory and work there. Okay. I kindly ask you not to step over any of the existing works around here. Okay. And let me just finish this because we have only 5 minutes left, just summarizing and attending any kind of questions that you may have. Okay, these are the details of the exercise, so you have what is expecting to have. Yeah, and there's another thing, another last thing. Imagine that you are willing to do an actual data model. You can ask for help, but you can ask for help clicking the green button. What's the green button for? Is for announcing, oh, I'm going to work on this data model. And it's offering you a form in which you can say, oh, this is the goal of the new data model. This is the name that I'm going to use. This is my GitHub user. This is for me to grant you permissions. So you have already granted permissions, but anyhow, this form, I guess, if you don't put a GitHub user, is not going to allow you to submit. Okay, your organization, this is optional, the project is optional, and the domain, all of this is optional. Okay, if you fill this form, what you get is something like this. So you will be listed like in this list. Okay, this list are coming from people who is working on something, and they are sharing the email just for getting help or getting collaboration or whatever. So you are willing to get collaboration, maybe it would be good to use this. So this guy is creating about CO2 emissions because he is involved in a CO2 market project. This is for the connection with robots. This is for management of solid waste management. Okay, this is for a data. This is, I don't remember what's that for. This is for what's that? I don't know, multi-agent systems that I'm not very clear. What are they? This is for the integration of a standard, which is DDI, CDI, into mapping it into the smart data models and so on. So you will appear here, possibly in the lower part, just by clicking this form. And let me just summarize what we have learned here. So the first, what's the goal for doing all this stuff? Is just if you document your data model, you could be compatible. Or instead of creating brand new one, just use one which is existing. Save your time. Use your time for which is really valuable for your work. Okay. It's always possible, the contribution. There is a contribution manual and there are many channels for support. Even there is, I haven't told you, there is a Slack channel. Okay. So if we go to the front page here on the right, you see, sorry, here, a Slack channel here. Okay. Oh, I've opened into a new. It will come here. Okay. There is a Slack channel for support. There is also a half an hour live session every week that you can access by attending what is here into the header. Okay. So you and of course you can raise an issue. Okay, here you can contact, and in this contact there is a form. So you are like I guess it's the Manchester. You are not walking in alone. Okay, you never. So this you have search tool for finding wherever you need, and the best thing is not to reinvent the wheel. Okay, and the differential advantage of this is that we provide with a quick answer. So if you are in a project, we can go at the same time of your project. So we are not giving you, come call later in a year, and they will have something standardized for you. Okay. We do not invent. The contribution is the minimum that we can ask. Everything is automated. So, and we have a single source of truth. So there is whenever there is an update, everything is updated. All the versions, all the databases, everything. Okay. And we prefer something which is simple and useful than technically correct and powerful, because from time to time there are people which says to us, this is not technically precise, or it's not, possibly they are right, but it works. So, and whenever it works, it's difficult to say, this is not technically correct, but works. Maybe what you are doing is technically correct. It's not proof that you work. Okay. Of course, if it's better technically correct and it works, then we have to do something. Okay. So let me check if there are other questions here. So I'm not seeing. So there is. We can extend a bit. 5 minutes for your questions. You have. Go for the chat. Question time.
Whilst we're waiting for questions, we could actually show the demo video, which I didn't have time for before Alberto started. Val, could you start showing the video at that point?
I guess. I have to stop sharing, isn't it?
Yeah, you stop sharing. Let Val do it. This is this will also help answer Sebastian's question, which is currently down as unanswered. I've got a short demo.
Let me go to one question. Only check also the last account inserted into eHub list. Okay. Yes. Copy. I'm going to grant you. So you are not seeing me, but I'm granting you. I will tell you. Credit settings. M. D'Agostini, you are in. Okay.
So could you press play?
Oh. Somebody has pasted Maur Cordioli. This is not found. Okay. Yeah. The guy with Mulsidalab is in as well. Okay. Sorry for interruption, Jason.
Val, could you put the sound on as well?
No, but then
Your sound. For the moment, it's muted. You can see me being quite animated. This is actually from a presentation I gave back in the summer of the year.
No, the point that he has to put in the speakers, and then through the microphone, the attendees could listen to it.
Yeah, you've
Because
also
otherwise
you've got the video on. Hey, I cannot unmute. I want you to. Oh, great! In that case, could you just shift on to the actual demonstration? I can do the voiceover over the demonstration. The problem I have is that my machine's a bit slow. I can point everyone to the right point in the video anyway. I'll just put that in the chat. But yeah, Val, could you just do the presenting anyway? Then we'll just get it up to the demo. Because whenever I try doing it, I'm buffering. So just yeah, fine. Right, just press play, and you can move the volume up on the bar at the bottom as well. Right. Yeah. At the moment, the sound's really, really low. Could you move the sound up a bit from the bottom of the bar of on the YouTube video? That's the reason why you can't hear me. I'm totally muted on the video. Bottom right. Bottom left, sorry. Bottom left. Bottom left. Next to the equal. Yes. That's it. That's it. Move that up to maximum. Then press play. It should actually give you something.
Now it's playing.
So yeah, I just done the relationship demo. It should be the subscriptions demo, right? And I'm still not saying anything. Okay, so this is annoying. I can try doing the stuff myself. See if I can do the presentation. It's just it's been buffering for me, which has been really annoying. Okay, I'll tell you. I'll take over the presentation and see if I can get it to work.
Well, this you can send questions to the Q&A because.
So I will see the presentation. I've had terrible buffering issues, unfortunately, which doesn't help. And I can't share until Val gives it back to me. So you have to unshare, Val, and then I might be able to grab it. Right, let's see if it's work. Share a screen. Select a tab. That one here. See if this will work. It might not work. If not, we'll have to do the next session instead. So this is me. I'm a lot louder. How you connect a context broker in the NGS context broker to something which is outside of that central box. This is a raised event. This is where we actually go off and do something. It says, okay, when the following queue, which is that queue parameter I'm talking about, occurs, based on the following when attributes changing, what attributes for the following entity types, and potentially only checking every 30 seconds or what have you. You can actually filter, you can actually throttle this as well. If the criteria is true, send something to this endpoint. The endpoint in this case is going to be a no stop notification, and it's always of a well-known format. So you can see that the data in question, in this case, has got the ID, obviously, and the type, obviously, but we're asking for located in number of items and stocks, and we're asking at the key values format. So overall, it's got those attributes. The stuff at the top is all generated. And oops, I think both of them together. And similarly, registration is kind of the reverse. It's not the opposite. It's basically saying where information is coming from elsewhere
outside of a context broker, where can I augment my
No, I'm buffering. That's annoying. Yeah, I'm going to have to show this demo at some other points because
with information coming from elsewhere.
No, it's still buffering. This is the problem I have when I'm trying to do demos live at the same time. So yeah, I'm going to have to cut this video out and show it on the next session. We just have to stop at this point here. Apologies for that.
Now there is a little bit of confusion here because the attribute properties is being changed for the simple reason that that is incompatible with GeoJSON LD. So it's going to be called property names and relationship names. So you might find brokers use the older format, but it will be property names and relationship names. But what this is saying here, and I'll show you an example of that as well, is saying for this particular building, the attribute tweets you can ask over that URL there, and obviously that URL over there will then process the information. It's going to be easier to show rather than tell. So let's finish off the final two quick demos. Right. So sharing, share again.
There's a bit of background on what was going on beforehand. If I'm looking rather sweaty, this is a rather hot day in the middle of last summer.
Okay. The subscription is good. Oh.
I'm trying to find the right point in this video. Oh, we go.
Okay, so
and it's buffering again. Yeah, I was trying to find the right point in a 3-hour video, and it's not always working perfectly. The annoying thing is that again, this is entirely down to using AirMeet and not having the right, having a powerful enough computer.
We're up and running with a farm which has got some entities in it already, and I've got a little tutorial application which is showing some stuff on the screen, so we'll be able to see what's received. I've put into my context broker a series of devices which are going to be able to work. The important one here is the filling station, because that's the one I'm going to be using, and I can then just add my feedstock to the barn. I've got a series of devices, and I'm going to be putting in information coming up on screen. That's my endpoint for viewing what's where the subscription goes. Right, so I can create my payload. Again, once again, I've got my the same config context file, and you can see that I'm adding in a request here. So I have a device. That's better. I have a device on the OpenIoT NGSI-LD tenant. FIWARE is by default multi-tenant, so that you can have one context broker servicing multiple values. And you can see here, then I've got this controlled asset. I'm in building farm 1, and I've got a filling sensor. I'm filling hay in my barn. You can see controlled asset. Now I can then create a subscription request, which has got the attributes which I described in the previous previous slide. So here I want to retrieve filling with controlled asset, and I'll do it in key values format, and I'm going to push to an endpoint called low stock farm 1.
Jason,
and you can see that it will happen when fillings between 6.
If I may, my mic is back on, so I could share the video again if you want.
Make that send. You can see the usual 201 comes through, I can do the same thing for.
I think the video is running at the moment. Okay, isn't it?
It is for me though. Yeah.
Let's leave it. Let's leave it run. Oh, now it's buffering again.
Key values. I'm just highlighting the stuff again. And then I can do the same thing for different formats, like the normalized format. We're going to put it between 4 and 6. And then finally, it is possible that you might have additional formats. This is going to be the NGSILD format, V2 format for legacy systems. And you can list the subscriptions. You see nothing coming through. The reason is because, again, as I said, these are based on tenants. So I need to put that NGSILD tenants to look at this particular tenant, because I put my devices onto a specific tenant. So I can start removing some feedstock from my farm, and you can see that the value is going down, 88, 87, 84. And when it goes below 8, we can see that a payload has been pushed to that particular endpoint. It's just displaying it on the screen. And you can see it's in that case, it was key value pairs. If I do it a second time, it will come through, it'll go below 6. And you can see that one is is that one normalized? Yeah, just like the normalized format. And then you can see type and relationship in there. And then if I do it one more time, it'll come through, and it will come through as NGSI V2 format, which is used by systems.
As you can see, various formats are possible.
You can see that this case, the IRIs are in long format. You can actually get them to the short format as well. So that briefly is subscriptions. I will now try showing. I'll stop sharing that one. I'll try showing the final video.
This is going to be registrations. It would be if it didn't buffer again. It's annoying. No, we're going. Taking a bit of time to get the thing set up. I'll bring it up in a second.
Registrations. So we're going to get the tweets from a third-party source here.
It's just buffering again. Hopefully it'll unbuffer. This is it's annoying, I know, but it's it should come up.
And we're just going to get information from elsewhere. And again, I'm running this time. I'm running the FIWARE supermarket viewpoint. No, I'm running this. No, not yet. Oops. Yeah, that's right. So look, install one. At the moment, I've got no tweets coming through whatsoever, but they will be displayed on screen in a second. Again, I've got my devices and my other piece of information. I can create a registration using the format as again shown in the previous slide. You see tweets are going to come from this thing called static provider, which is just going to put some Douglas Adams quotes on screen. And
it could be
we are saying that the information is coming from building. And again, if we look at the source properly, you can check the registration. And because I've got the appropriate tenants, it's got information in there. If I now read from the store will also include additional information. You can see they've got a standard thing there. But you can see it on the tweets. It's actually retrieving information from a third-party source. If I was to retrieve it from my on-screen device, you can see values coming in there. Now you can read the information direct from this context provider, because what the context.
Right, that's probably enough of that that video, to be honest, because it's still buffering. I'll just
provider is doing, and this is
stop sharing that.
So quite important is that
and of course now it's running because I've got run out of power. So the important point there is that, as you can see, the data, once it's been registered, it just appears as if it's in the context broker. So it makes no difference whatsoever. It's difficult to demo that in a usable situation, but you should get the idea. And of course, there's more information on that link which I placed on the chat. So I think it's probably a good time to wind up this first session. We're already overrun by about 40 minutes. We'll be back tomorrow, and I'm not sure, is it 3 o'clock? Is it 3:30, Val, that we're supposed to be starting?
Let me double check, Jason, just a sec, please.
Because we've got both timings seem to have crept onto the information somewhere. But we'll be back tomorrow afternoon to be doing. I think next element is advanced NGS-ILD operations, and what we obviously in the meantime, if you've got any questions or what have you, won't be answering them right now. But we can open the chat tomorrow, or you can ask me questions directly before we go any further. Any closing remarks, Alberto?
No, I don't think so. The same as you. So we are here for supporting and for providing help. So don't hesitate to contact us if you have any kind of questions, issues, or something is not working, which is always possible. But we are here for this, for fixing the things whenever you want. So they are making questions regarding the starting time tomorrow.
Yeah, I believe it's 3 o'clock, but I just need to make it. Some people seem to think it's 3:30, so I just need to make sure that's confirmed. Hopefully, what you've realised today is that NGS-ILD relies on JSON-LD. JSON-LD relies on an @context file. An @context file describes your attributes and your entities in the real world, and they all rely on data models like smart data models. So all these things come together to be able to describe what's going on in the real world. Obviously, humans can work it out, but we're talking about how machines can work it out. So humans don't really need these @context files themselves. It's just that machines are dumb, and they need this information to be able to understand data coming from disparate sources, which is the whole point of the i4Trust.
Definitely.
So Val, if you could just tell us when we're starting up again tomorrow. I think.
Yes. Sorry, I just wanted to double check a few things. At 3 p.m. it is the time we start tomorrow.
Okay,
3 p.m.
CET, Central European Time. It's going to be a nice morning session for you over in North America or Latin America, and it's going to be ridiculously late if you're in Japan. So see you tomorrow, folks.
See you. Bye-bye. Thank you.